Second here. Gotta go get my buddy Neil from the Electric Universe. Oh. We're sitting here listening to dead silence on the hangout. Sorry, I'm talking to Neil. Should have been like talking to the mic. All right, well, welcome to the Electric Universe hangout on one of the two positive disintegration channels. What's up at thunderboltsproject@gmail.com. Link. Let me get that link again. Oh, wait. There we go. Yeah, the great thing about Google Hangouts over there is you don't need a camera. Skype won't even initiate without a camera. It's a piece of crap, by the way. Google wiped the floor with them. All right. Control V. There we go. So tomorrow is Christmas Eve. Today's the 23rd, but it's just barely 2:45 in the morning, which you'll probably find a lot of us Electric Universe types awake at this hour. I'm sure my sound is on. Whoa. All right. Neil ought to be coming in the call in a minute. And I'll just sit here and talk so he knows he's come into the call live when he does. Me. Yeah, this was my first conference since going to EU 2014, EU 2015 workshop, EU 2015 Paths of Discovery. Oh wait, no, it was oh shoot, I don't even remember. Neil will know. Man, I've lost all my mirth of late. I know not why. I know not whence. Hamlet. What's he say? I've lost all my mirth of late. I know not whence. Oh, because for even any exercise does not become my disposition. He says, "Okay, so I've lost my mirth of late. I know not whence. No manner of exercise becomes my disposition." 9. I don't see him yet, but I'll go look over to see if he's still talking on. Right over here. Right up in here. Yeah, he's not on there. Mm-hmm. There's Miss Linda, though. Oh. Neil, where are you? We hadn't come in yet. Let's see what's going on. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's inviting other people, passing the link along. I bet he is. Just the kind of guy he is. He's a connector, not a divider. Some people want to divide you up from other people because they're, well, scumbags. But other people, and this would be a huge indicator, if somebody tries to divide you up or tries to foment disagreements or isn't showing, oh, isn't Linda? She says, hi. I said, hi, smoochy face. She says, hi. She's the best. She's like a little bit older than me, classically trained, as a master's degree in classical dance. And she's beautiful. Oh, man, she's got the face and body of a woman 20 years younger than her. I was just talking about you, Miss Lena. On my Goo hangout. Said you were really beautiful. I can't spell. I don't have to spell though, not with a freaking pop-up spell fixer. And a master's in dance. But I didn't dox you. She's like, what's that mean? In other words, give your last name in other words. See, somebody posted in something. Kenneth Cornell, Aesthetic Perfection, Industrial Pop Tour. Blackcraft, Tuesday. Where? At Launchpad. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've heard of them. And Nixie. Yeah, you know me. I never go to Blackcraft Whiskey. That sounds good. Bernard Duga has posted in record record give always at this one Thursday night at Sister. What? December low life. 32 people interested. Low life. That doesn't sound good. Okay, this is December 15th. Oh, it's over then. Low life, kids and vinyl. Waiting for my buddy. Hey, there you are.
I am here, yes.
I don't have a camera, Neil.
That's okay.
This is Neil. He's joining us now. I'm not going to dox you. You can give your full information if you care to.
That's totally fine.
Turn off the camera if you don't want to, appear on the end. See how mine does? It's just my icon. And when I talk, do you see that? Or you might have to click on the button that's me down there. Is this the first time you've done a Google Hangout?
I guess so, yes.
Oh, you don't have a Gmail icon. You're just a blue man. You're like an egg account on Twitter.
Well, I just made the account.
Wow.
Well, no. I mean, I've made it recently. I shouldn't say I just made it.
That's okay. I don't blame you. People appear to be distancing themselves from me for some unknown reason, which I now know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unknown reason, which you now know. Doesn't that mean it's no longer unknown?
Yeah. Well, it was unknown to me. It's like, I guess when you're the last to find out that some of the closest people to you are not don't have your best interests at heart. Let's put it that way.
So what does it mean that I'm on the air? Are you broadcasting this?
Yeah, but I think I have 2 followers on this channel.
How are you broadcasting it?
Google Hangouts. In fact, let me share my screen and I'll show you. Let me go to screen. Can you see my screen? If not, switch over to it. All right, now you should be able to see my screen.
I can, yeah.
Although it's going to be a little weird because I have a vertical screen. It's one of those 4x3 dimension LED, and I flipped it on its side, so it's like a tablet.
I accidentally loaded the game. 1 second. There we go.
Okay, right. So my screen might not fit perfectly on your thing because I have mine tablet sized. All right, so here's my channel over here. Right? Lagging a little bit.
This is ironic.
How's that?
Oh, well, I'll show you in just a second.
Okay. Wait, you know what? I made a video on how to set this up. It's on my Jack Passmore channel. I don't want to bore you when I could be talking to you.
No. It's it's quite all right. It's just
okay. I'm back.
Hilarious.
See, I'm a bottle of blue called Strength. The Page's Strength.
Yes, I see that. All right. Okay.
It's a magic potion. Some of my dead ancestors and my uncle, avuncular uncle, my mentor, Eddie, whose house I'm in right now, has been like intending help to me from the great beyond. Because I've had enemies I didn't know about. You know what I mean? I'm not the type to have enemies. I'm totally oblivious to people who are undermining me and doing bad things, and I don't see it because I'm not a calculating person.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Right.
So you're not quite sure about whether or not someone's on the up and up, and you don't see that coming. They tend to betray you and broadside you.
Every time.
The whole revenge is a dish best served cold.
Yeah,
Han Moon Sung
it's
type thing.
that. Yep, well said. And it's, this world is just crammed with people who seem to think they've come here to learn how to like destroy relationships and be resentful and not have, and not work on the hard part, which is like mending and like holding their, like carrying their share of whatever the problem is. It's getting rarer.
Well, I think a friend of mine said it. She said, we stopped using tools and loving people and started loving tools and using people.
That's well, not I didn't.
No, but obviously it was a conditional situation with regards to society itself. I mean, it wasn't
Maybe American society post-war, right? After we went into World War II.
After the quote unquote New Deal.
Yeah. Are you talking about the with the stock market crash and all that?
I was referring to mostly World War II and FDR. So yes, I guess.
Okay, well, there's a book called by Amity Schlegel, and it's called something. It's about how we were put into an economic depression by all that stuff that they did after the stock market crash of 27 or whatever it was, 29, and how all of that government fascism like drew out what should have been a 1 or 2 year like depression into like a 10-year depression. But it's a big scholarly work. I haven't read it, but I've heard a lot of interviews with her, and I'm going to defer to her expertise on that.
I tended to defer to my own expertise, but I don't really have. I mean, I can tell you interesting tales, and I could tell you a few pieces of history that I can take to say that around the same era, regarding the same people, that paints a different story. But that story is inferred from those stories. So as to the truth of the matter, I don't know, but I have some ideas.
I'm starting to think that everything that we're taught about, the last 100 years of history, it's just a story that's fed to people. Like it goes from the.
Okay, number one, irony. Okay, irony. What I'm trying to show you is the fact that we didn't get back to the irony part of the conversation. Number one, I too set this whole thing up to broadcast. So I'm now broadcasting you as well.
Tight. Why don't you invite folks?
Well, no. This is just alpha. I'm just getting this set up on Twitch. So.
Oh, you're on Twitch. Okay, cool. You're on your Twitch account.
Yeah. Well, no, I made a new Twitch account for everything. Like this is all me and made for the Electric Universe and so on and so forth.
I got you.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So now we're both broadcasting, which is kind of cool. But I wanted to get back to, now that that's out in the open, since now you know and I know, there. So we don't have to pretend.
What? No, I have a transparency policy. It's part of my thing. It's like,
well, no. I just didn't want to be sitting there waiting to drop the bomb on you, later. I wanted to get that out now. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Go on with what you're talking about, though. With whatever the subject was, I totally lost in a second.
We went from what the mainstream media or the newspapers and this.
Yes.
So the media tells us what happened, and that goes in the history books, and it's never questioned or compared to anything, especially the facts. And so I think we're the bad guys, man. Look at who we were allies with in World War II, with Joseph Stalin. I mean, he's a sadistic, brutal man.
Actually, I don't try to judge it that way.
Oh yeah, I'm saying this is just a possible scenario. I'm not saying I know.
Well, I had a revelation there once I watched Oliver Stone's little 5-part series on World War II, which I thought was so much more interesting than I like understanding the nature of the 20th century in a little bit more detail with regards to how Russia dealt with the problem and how this has been going on for a while with them. What is it so interesting about Russia that they want to conquer it? And
Oh, we should bring Ted
this.
in. Ted's up. Let me get Ted to come into the call. Here, I'm gonna just email him. You remember?
Well, the trouble is that I don't want us to go. Well, let's just let the conversation go. I guess I don't want to be too judgmental, so let it slide.
Actually, Ted will keep you talking. He's a very chatty guy, but he's brilliant.
Well,
but I'll just
this is what it's all about, really. So
it was at 2014 Electric Universe Conference. Where incidentally, I was one of the scholars, right?
I knew that you were, and yes.
He told me, oh, Vladimir Putin is the man. He's like telling me all this great stuff. And I was brainwashed into I was like, oh, no, you didn't. Vladimir Putin's the bad guy. I didn't.
Don't get me wrong. I don't have any particularly love for any particular world leader. The only reason I have any inkling with regards to Vladimir Putin, and let me just explain it very simply, just like I understand my own prime minister's human nature, I've watched him grow up and I watched him, be a minor celebrity within Canada's circles through all my life. There was no doubt to me that he was going to become prime minister because of who he was.
Trudeau, yeah.
But that's okay. He's not his father, but he still has morals which I appreciate, and they're clear. Now, I don't agree with everything that he's done, and I don't usually follow political leaders, and it is to the imagination. But this is what I'm thinking.
Toasty Canadian is like, I'm not going to say. No, I'm kidding.
No, but with regards to Putin, whatever. Putin is a food here.
Putin. Ted calls him Putin too, yeah.
So what I think is that he's a fairly, he's just a reasonable guy, someone whom if you made a deal with him, he would honor it. He seems like an upstanding person, although obviously I have no doubt that he's ordered someone's death before, just like I picture every president probably has. So, I'm not trying to absolve anything. I'm sure my prime minister has done bad things. All of them probably have. So I'm not trying to judge. I just thought it was something like an interesting gentleman, and to understand a little bit more about who he was and how he thought. And you can see him progress over the years. And I mean, one day, this is very interesting. One day I woke up and I was thinking about all of the presidents of the United States, and of the 20th century anyway.
Okay.
And I just realized I knew them all, and I just could name them backwards, nobody do. Yeah. And then one day, and it's sort of like when you realize all the doctors in Doctor Who, it's, oh hell, I know them all.
Right.
Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, my favorite. Anyway, so, but then I realized I also knew all of Russia's. It's just not hard.
You knew Chernenko, and you knew. Go ahead, give them to me.
Well, you got Putin, Larov, Putin, and then Boris Nelson.
Boris.
And then Gorbachev, and then you go to, I think it is Khrushchev and Brezhnev, and then Stalin, really. I mean, then to Lenin, I think. It's a very short list.
But it doesn't matter. It's like I've never had a mind for memorizing.
I just happened.
That's.
I was like, whoa.
I don't think you set out to do that because you're pretty capable of comparing ideas. So I don't think you fill your head with what you're told to think.
I try not to anyway. So where's Ted?
I don't know. I didn't invite him yet because I was just I thought, you know what? I talk to Ted all the time. I never talk to Neil.
Oh, well then.
But you never talk to Ted, do you?
I talked to him while we were at the conference this year.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get him on so you guys can say hi, and I'll just stand back and watch and enjoy. So,
Oh, well, no, I know him. It's up to you what you want to do.
oh, I love Ted. I could never say no to Ted. He's awesome, dude. He's been like a really good.
Well, that's good. Then we should drop. We should like put something somewhere that we're posting. I don't know who this Theodore Hahn gentleman is. Did you link me something of his?
What? Who now?
Was it you that linked me something with regards to a theory this gentleman had? I feel bad now.
No, it's all right. Don't mind me. It's like you're not. I don't think you realize the amount of love you've sent through the ether to me, Neil.
I have I?
Yes, because I've been going through a rather difficult situation where not only am I positively disintegrated, as Dabrowski would put it, where he kind of put a favorable thing on
preferably not how Spock would put it. Like, go on.
No, but yeah, it's like when you showed that you did that Spock meme or that Spock
on Facebook.
I'm like, good God, this is just like me. I feel like Spock dying in the engine room. Okay, here we go, Ted.
I find things that are good. I tend to be someone who enjoys the good a little bit more than.
No, but
don't get me wrong. But I think the difference is that you mentioned it earlier that you get sideswiped by the Machiavellian stuff.
Worse than that, I've actually been just taken in and put in a pen like a veal calf, and that's where I am right now.
Well, I've been there, but I was much younger. And I played Machiavellian characters and had to. I played a lot of role-playing games. Not much to do up here, so I ended up role-playing for larger and larger groups, and eventually LARPs and so forth. And
nice.
Trying to keep 40 different characters and all of their nemesi, whatever.
Yeah.
And then and all the plot lines for each of the games, and coordinate that with a global plot line, plus all at the same time running games every night for all of my friends. I was like the entertainment. It became, I basically realized I was memorizing everything, keeping everything in my head. Paper became too slow for me. Like I was sitting there, I could know everyone's stats. Like I know, okay, well, he has 17, he had 12 of this, blah, 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 blah. And it was basically like counting cards, but I knew everything. So I didn't actually need to, like if someone goes, I need an NPC, and I go, well, you need this NPC. And I was like, well, do we have a character sheet? And go, never mind, give me a piece of paper. And I would just write down the entire character in verbatim because it was in my head already. Here you go, there you go, play that. And it was like, how the hell did you do that? So I began to realize that talent for Machiavellian entertainment and everything. The trouble is that people actually began to think that I was like that. Like I'm not a bad person. I just can play one really good as an actor, like in a fun game. And it became a little bit too much drama in real life. And I backed away from it. And I kept a few friends from that time. So I didn't lose everyone. But I had to change. I moved cities and changed who I was. And when I looked for something more. I had people like Graham Hancock and Anthony West to look to, and I thought that maybe there was something going on here. And there's still some ancient structure stuff that megalithic stuff that I really want to. That's like an aspect of the electric universe, just like electric geology, that I really want to delve into, but I can't do that until I get the geology down first. like I got the first two stages of that. Like I got the electric universe, I got the electric plasma cosmology. I went back to school, I became an electrical engineer, just specifically so I could know this stuff. And then I started actually beginning to understand and put some mechanisms behind Michael Steinbacher stuff, and moved from there. So this is where I'm at this moment. So,
so you have a bachelor's in EE?
I'm an electrical engineering technologist, which is 2.5 years of college, but it's 9 to 5. And it's a thing in Canada where you have you're not a technician. You're someone who basically takes what an engineer designs, and then you can design yourself, of course. I did my own work, and fully capable of doing that. But usually you're also trained in the actual devices that are necessary to make that effect and their limitations.
Okay, I got you. I've
like what chips to
RLC
use and so on.
Let me tell you, I've trained in RLC circuits, right, up to like diodes. So you do AC and DC and inductors and conductors, and inductors and capacitors.
I know exactly what you're talking about, of course.
Yeah, you see exactly. So most people aren't that informed even about that. So just to let you know what level I'm at, it's just like go from there.
Well, no, I'm not trying to go above people's heads. It's just
no. I'm a highly autodidactic. I'll just make a note of it.
Where is Ted? Is he coming or not?
I pasted it in his little thing. You may.
Okay.
You may.
No. The only reason, I don't worry about it. The only reason I asked is because I didn't want to suddenly get in a role and get cut off. I didn't want to, I didn't know if he was waiting in the wings or something,
I shouldn't have interrupted you. I'm sorry, Neil.
Oh, it's all good. The long and the short of it, though, when you're talking about, the limitations of devices, basically, I don't have a bachelor's, but it's equivalent to one here in Canada. And if I went somewhere, if someone asked you, what are you, I'm equivalent to a Bachelor of Electrical Engineering. I only have to take 1 or 2 more years and I would have my master's. And it's legitimately, like if I go to Australia, it would be a bachelor's, you know what I mean? So
yeah, in STEM, you should do that. First off, congratulations. That's incredible. I have a little taste of how hard that is, and that's really.
It drove me to drink. I really, my liver suffered, and I can't believe I made it through that. It was very much one of the toughest things I've ever done, only because it was relentless, and the deadlines kept coming, and you had to be able to cope with that. Now, I kind of wish I got into that more when I left school, but it's very hard in this particular part of the world.
Yeah.
So I have what I have, but I have opportunities. So I'm basically building on that right now. Is why I'm building this. Like you're on a stream right now, and this is what we're starting. Well, it's one of the things I'm starting with. So it's kind of nice that I'm talking to you about it.
This is great. I want you to keep telling me about what happened, how you got to where you are, and everything else, because then I can leave it up on my channel, and it could be one of my first EU interviews in a long while.
Well, you're more than welcome to it.
Thanks. Have you vaped?
Have I vaped?
Yeah.
On my channel. Not really, no. I mean, I have. I know what it is.
What it is, it's a little, it's just like a high drain battery with a coil of resistant wire.
Oh, yes, I know exactly what they are. No argument there. In fact, I was actually commenting on how it got 220 volts and therefore how many amps are going through it. And we were having a great discussion on the different ohmages and so forth. And,
well, it's like some kind of etheric nutriment utensil, because you can go to the herb store and like get St. John's wort and grind it up, put it in some vegetable glycol, steep it, strain it, and then vape it.
yes, you Americans are weird.
What volatilizes as you pull air past the heat reaction. It just I guess it would be volatilizes off of there. I actually don't have any background in chemistry, but
Oh, no, I understand what it is, and what propylene glycol and vegetable
oh, I wish I
glycol
had a
do.
camera so I could show you. This is so awesome. Yeah. So you okay? You know about the propylene glycol. Okay.
Oh yeah, they got the all my friends use it. You know,
Oh, they
well,
do.
depending.
Friends that vape.
Oh yes, I quit smoking a while ago, so
Well, you can vape without nicotine.
yeah, but I don't need to. So
I went in the other day and I asked the guy, "Hey, give me something that I could use instead of eating bonbons or Hershey's Kisses sitting on the couch. Give me something I can just sit there and do something with my mouth and get some flavor." He gave me like this stuff called Divinity or caramel something, no nicotine, and it's a very satisfying thing to do. It's like you don't have to munch. And he said he does the same thing, so he just gave me the two of his favorites. It's over at the Oasis here on Pennsylvania. I mean on Manal.
I actually know where some of those streets are there.
Yes, I know, because you were driving around town and I missed the chance to get you to come over and visit me.
I got to see Ben and went to his meeting. I won the award from being from the furthest spot. We're like, who's from blah 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 blah? And he goes, I'm from this town over here, just over the hill, blah blah blah. And I was like, there's like 30 people at this place listening to this guy speak. So,
Oh my God, I can't believe the breakfast at Wix.
yeah.
Yes, well, Bill Fletcher came down from the conference, and we were going to go to that, right? But he ended up leaving Saturday morning without saying anything. So
I didn't know if I don't know if I met him at the conference, but I had a great time. Truly, when I was at this brunch, I found that the people, um, uh, I don't know. Uh, I'm not saying anything bad, and please don't think that I am. It's
no, just
I don't know if
be frank.
and well, I don't. There's no. It's only because it directly involves Ben. But Ben's a. But I consider. I wanted to preface this that Ben's a great guy, and I have nothing against him whatsoever. I consider him a friend. So it's just that with all the people around, the same thing that's happening to Ben is what my friend. One of the reasons why I got my friend involved in my project. As a director, as someone to stop me from doing that.
Which is what, like just giving over to the adulation of the crowd?
Oh, no. I don't know if that, I mean, one can't control the adulation of the crowd. And if you just handle them well, you handle them well. And there's nothing to be said about that. That's I consider that, I'm going to do whatever I can to be as smooth as possible in public. That's just my nature, and I'm going to be friendly and outgoing, and try to be helpful and so forth. And I'm sure that Ben is equal in that capacity. But what I meant is that because of the longevity, he's built up such a following. I find at times like that, I've gone through some falls, so I found that it was those who are truly your friends who you must rely on when things go badly. And I don't know his history, but I sense that he hasn't had things go badly yet. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, I hope he never has anything bad happen whatsoever.
Absolutely.
So I just feel like I see parts of me and Ben from years ago, like just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, where I was like, if I was into what I'm into now, younger, but of course he has a different background, so I'm not.
How old?
and different goals. And
How
so,
old are you?
I'm 43.
Oh, okay. I just heard 47.
47? Nice.
I can,
No.
brother.
The Star Trek number, no.
Yep.
And last year I was the age of the life, the universe, and everything. But and so now I'm just kind of like +1.
No, it's I. Look, I'm actually you're very you got it all together. You've got your young looks. You're like a very well-aged whiskey.
Young looks.
You're like a bourbon or something.
Yeah, well, from the front maybe I look. I'm sure from the back it's a little thinning, but still, it's well, and you see, and there you go. That's why my fiance is short. You see, so she can't see the top of my head.
Well, you know that, man. You're like definitely, and she is too. You ever get that feeling when you're at the conference or when you're around the EU people that you're in the presence of a more conscious circle of people than you find generally in humanity?
Yes, I do, and I feel
it's an ecstatic feeling.
Yes, it is. I feel that it's important. Like, for example, there was a lady who's unfortunately a Catherine, I think. Her name, I think her name is Catherine. She came there with a theory on ideas and concepts and the idea of information. And
yeah,
all she wanted was someone to listen to her. So I just sat down with her for half an hour and listened to her. It was simple, and all she really needed was someone to actually pay attention to what she had to say.
Yeah.
Now, I thought now somehow it was intriguing, and I like that people had a different opinion or difference opinion, but it's philosophy, right?
Oh, no, she had something about like words or objects in the mind, and they have a certain hierarchy, something like that. I'm trying to remember.
Yes, and concepts forming in that sort of way, and we build on it like a foundation. I've experienced it before, somewhat in Buddhism, where you begin to realize that not only is it good to avoid thinking, obviously having beliefs, but then actually having, if you can understand things, just see things as they are without even having ideas.
Right.
Now that, of course, is apparently supposed to be nirvana or something like that. And you can only have it for short periods of time. And to be perfectly frank, I felt like those moments occurred for me when I was really working on that. And they happen in simple places, like on the bus, like you're just not daydreaming. You're actually totally there. It's very interesting.
Oh, right. Like you're sensing the reality that you're in.
Yeah. And well, just basically trying to put as Julian Jaynes would say, I guess, putting both of your bicameral minds together into one moment.
Wow.
Which is kind of why things like music is so easy to keep things in memory, because it activates both brains at the same time. I mean,
yeah, I know what you mean. I posted this today. It goes, it's a quote from, I don't know the name of the philosopher, but it goes, you have neither the patience that weaves long lines, nor a feeling for the irregular, nor a sense of the fittest place for a thing. For your intelligence is not one thing among many. You worship it as if it were an omnipotent beast, a man intoxicated on beliefs. On it believes his own thoughts are legal decision, or facts themselves born of the crowd and time. He confuses his quick changes of heart with the imperceptible variation of real forms and enduring beings. You are in love with intelligence until it frightens you. For your ideas are terrifying and your hearts are faint. Your acts of pity and cruelty are absurd, committed with no calm, as if they were irresistible. Finally, you fear blood, more and more, blood and time. Isn't that awesome? I mean, isn't that exactly what we're talking about? Neil?
I'm still thinking about it.
Oh, you could go to the Facebook page and look. Or let me show it to you.
You actually posted it, at least the last stanza, in my one of my replies, or one of your replies.
Right, because that's in Cormac McCarthy's. Are you looking at my screen now? Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, let me zoom in on the talk here. Okay, on the thing here. Hang on, just let me take a sec. There we go. Can you see that? Oh, sorry. And then I get it up here. And then I'm screwed over. Okay. There you go.
Just put it over here. There you go.
Take a second to read it. This will be showing on my.
See, this is proof right there to me that
philosophy.
Well, no. What I meant is that as much as I enjoy good quotes with good cadence, and a well-delivered line, there's something about that, just simply words. I need something more. Sometimes I need to read it myself.
Oh yeah. No, I was inviting you to read it yourself, but I'll tell you what's really striking about this is your intelligence is not one thing among many. You worship it as if it were an omnipotent beast. A man intoxicated on it believes his own thoughts are a legal decision or facts themselves born of the crowd and time. He confuses his quick changes of heart with the imperceptible variation of real forms, like those moments you have on the bus where your mind is, your hemispheres unite. And enduring beings. So he's saying that, I could take that in many ways, but he confuses his quick changes of heart with imperceptible variation of real forms and enduring beings, as if people are just their intellect, I guess. That's how I'm going to take that. Or it could maybe be more like a personality, which is from...
I said, I see, he confuses his quick changes of heart with the imperceptible variations of real forms and enduring beings.
Yeah.
Is capitalized. It seems to indicate a spirituality, something where this is actually, when you think about it, that line alone seems to hearken to Julian James's work even stronger, where it is they took actual call from the gods. Of course, this is the 200 years after the actual last events that we call the events of the electric universe, so to speak, the mythological era, the catastrophist era, whatever it was, where they were still affected by it, but they weren't like Plato, or Odysseus, where they were actually thinking like us.
You mean as much into their being identified with their thoughts and their persona?
Well, Julian, have you read Julian James's book? I'm just asking.
My dad's a shrink. He gave me that book years ago, and I never read it. But Ted has been telling me all about it for years.
Well, the reason I am into the book is because it shows the exact same timeline as that of the plasma cosmology, plasma mythology. And with the exact same timeline comes a symbiosis of, basically, Julian James was wondering, why were they like this? I have no idea. Of course, simply taking what you learned from the electric universe and just reading Julian James's book, you know exactly why they were like this. They were like this because they were shocked. They were shocked, not physically like with electricity. They were in shock. They're the brain that takes over when you're in shock is the same brain as was always working in their world. So it was the dominant brain. So the brain that you consider yourself to be you would be the subservient brain. So it was completely reversed. This is why when you're in shock.
Oh, wait a minute. I just want to make sure this is clear for anybody who's watching this afterwards. you're saying there are two kinds of brains. So the old brain, what was that like? How was it different?
Well, it's not an old brain. We have schizophrenics today, but the difference is that we have different mechanisms that control it. Like, for example, when you're growing up, Julian Jaynes put forth that you're programmed by your parents or whoever is in control of you, so to speak. And they set your limitations and they set all of these boundaries. And you learn through imitation and so forth. But when you are about to do something stupid, like, for example, put your hand on a hot stove, you sometimes hear the admonitions of your mother telling you not to do that, like no, really loudly or something. And then you realize you're about to put your hand on the stove, even if you're not looking at it, like you'll hear it.
You'll hear like an objective voice.
Yes, an auditory signal. A perfect example that probably has happened to everyone is the feeling you have the moment the door is closing, okay, and your keys are inside.
Ha!
And something screams at you. You don't know where it comes from. You didn't do it. You're casually thinking about getting into the office, getting your shit done. You're not even paying attention to the car keys. But your other brain, the one who's actually walking, talking, driving the car,
sure,
using the bicycle, thinking of the words that are coming out of my mouth right now, because I'm certainly not thinking of them. I can't think fast enough to pick the words, but they come out of my mouth anyway. Now, the same thing is happening when you're getting out of the car. The trouble is that when it's basically a subservient brain at most of the time, and it does what it's told. And when you go and instruct it, it only realizes at the last second that you're about to lock the keys in your car. So it has to warn you and tell you what to do as fast as possible for you to grab that door. Otherwise, you're going to have what is referred to as a bad day. And your brain doesn't want a bad day. It wants a good day.
Yeah.
It's like a dog. It just wants a good day. Just let everything go by. So this is what Julian Jaynes realized, is that situation where that brain becomes more dominant and you lose sense of self and so forth is the same situation that happens when you're in shock, or the same situation when you have schizophrenia,
right,
or the same situation as possession or so forth.
Or mesmerized.
Or hypnotized, yes.
Yeah.
You're programming the other part of that brain and you're telling it what to do. And it's straightforward.
This is how you can make dissociated alters in one person, right?
Well, I'm not going that far, but I have no doubt that anyone who can write that book and could understand it could easily, with studying a little bit of MK Ultra stuff, probably be able to do some crazy shit. But
you know what's crazy is Bernardo Kastrup. He's a PhD in computer engineering, who went into that stuck his nose in the other door down the hall into philosophy. He wrote Why Materialism is Baloney. He's awesome. He's such a wonderful man. But he says that there are cases of patients who have like blindness in one alter, and they actually don't have any visual activity in that part of their brain, the visual part. So when one alter is active, in other words, they're totally obfuscated from each other, and even their physiology is different in the same body. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm just trying to think what that implies.
That implies that, are you trying to, wait. I get the suspicion you're giving me a little clever insincerity there. That's like, you know what it implies, don't you?
Well,
and you don't.
When I think about it, it seems to reinforce the idea of what I was saying. Yes, and there's a direct link, I think, what basically he began to realize is that if we actually piece this together and use the words that they use, the idea of what we think is a conscious human being hasn't occurred, or last time it occurred, I guess, would be 2,700 years ago. Before that, we were literal creatures. Now, this makes sense to me because they, like, later when they talked about what Hera said, like when Agamemnon and Achilles have a debate on, and Hera seems like a trickster because she gave orders to two different people. It's just like when Abraham was talking to an angel that came down in a pillar of fire, or Moses in the burning bush and so forth. You have a similar instance where these people are seeing hallucinations in the electric light sources that are flashing around them. But they're literal because they're real. There's no doubt that they're real, and the gods are real. So to them, when they got orders, it was real. So there was no, like, I think that's one of the reasons why there's more of a connection now of a worldwide culture. The possibility of it becomes much more reasonable because people would actually be, they're schizophrenic. They're not fully cognizant during the time of the chaos. Now, the reason this seems to be the case is because the way that we treat mythology, the way that they were literally describing what happened all the time. And then, of course, later, you have people like...
Wait, Ed responded. What do you got? Oh, go ahead, Neil. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, I was just saying that you have a situation where, for example, he talks about how a bunch of these Ibiru, or Hebrews, the madmen of the desert, who were not conscious, were brought to brought before Priam, I think his name was, from Troy, and they talked to them all day, these madmen, trying to get fortunes out of them and so forth, because they were basically behaving like schizophrenics. And these guys laughed and had a great time, and then at the end of the day, killed all 100 of them, because screw them, they're not us. And we purged them all, it seems. The same thing has happened with Plato. Plato said right at the beginning, we should learn from these old teachers when he was like 20 some odd years old. We should learn from these old people because they have great secret and wisdom to teach us. And by the time he was 55, I think he was saying, kill them all. You know, so it seems that whatever happened in 685, that close encounter event, really probably also caused some other interesting situations. And once it went away and the sky sort of calmed down, I think that the generation that was born later was no longer scared as much once they began to see the world, and they became much more like us, where they had a conscious eye that could imagine itself in different places, because we had to. In fact, I think we learned it because of this, because there was a whole lack of ranting old people who were saying, dude, God's in the sky, fire and brimstone, dude, no, I'm serious, fire, brimstone, bad, okay? Right. And then we were going, how the hell are we supposed to understand that? You know what I mean? So eventually...
The thing you said about a conscious eye that they could abstract. Go ahead, go on.
You need that. That's what it is. This is where you get the... In fact,
volitional self. You mean the ego that runs amok?
Well, you could call it that, but what Julian James was actually getting right down to was, he said it's actually the inward eye that can imagine itself in different places and move through time and space.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
And I give it great credence. This is where we get even terms for it, like, for example, narrow-minded and open-minded. So you actually have a situation where the more open-minded you are, the more you can imagine in different places, the harder it is for situations to affect you with regards to hypnotism and so forth, and you can't really get possessed or anything.
Well, unless you want to. I mean,
no, but you can still go into shock. I mean, if I would go into shock, if I had a car crash.
Oh, right.
I did have a car crash, and I don't remember much of it except for the fact that I recovered from the fact that I was upside down. Got my girlfriend over there, picked her up, carried her to the nearest house, knocked on the door, and I eventually became, quote unquote, myself again.
So
Somewhere
you
in
had
that
a
kitchen.
dissociative amnesic lapse.
Well, that's what you can call it. But basically, my other brain was totally in control. It was taking me to the nearest house where I could find help, and I had no choice in the matter whatsoever.
You were in a fugue state.
You could say that. The same thing happened actually when I got heat stroke earlier this year at the conference. I was sitting in my suit on Saturday night, and I just woke up in bed Sunday morning. I had no idea what happened.
Okay, now let me put a different kind of set of parameters on it, just from the way I know exactly what you're saying. But I would say you were able to remember all those facts as a GM and a DM and all those role-playing games because you loved what you were doing. And the facts just, you put them in your heart brain, into your heart brain.
In my heart brain. I like that.
Which is why people should pursue their own inquiry, their own loves as far as education goes. It should be like a big smorgasbord.
Well, I learned to love from good teachers. One of the people who I really attribute my love for would be James Burke.
Yeah, I saw him
Connection series
live once at UNM.
You did? Oh wow,
yeah.
You're lucky, because his The Day the Universe Changed series and so forth.
I was watching those before the conference, bro.
Oh, they're awesome. They're my thing. I see a lot of truth in them. And now the thing is that we were talking earlier about how we couldn't trust history, and there was this lady called New Earth, and
I know New Earth. Yeah.
And well, I'm not sure of her name actually, but
I'm not sure of her name either. But I was right there involved when she got on higher side chats. I was like helping out Greg Carlwood. Like he's like, do you know how to get a hold of her?
Well, the thing is that I find a lot of her work is what I'm going to eventually probably be referencing with regards to that next thing. See, the aspect of megaliths and so forth, because we have to address that problem in the electric universe too. Michael Steinbacher's work was a first step. The geological toolbox that is constructed, well, actually, I shouldn't say I constructed. No, I should. I did that. Yeah. So I built that. But basically, it has to do with the different processes that are required to make the different landscapes on the Earth. And
geopolymer. Oh wait. Okay. Yes, I know. Okay. So how much?
Like how to make a mesa, for example.
You know, Wall has so little respect for the entire discipline, so-called discipline of geology.
Well, I don't have a lot of love for the whole. No, well, I shouldn't say no love. I have love for geology. And I have a love for the planet. And I took, in college level courses or university courses in environmental geology and so forth, and I understand very basics.
Rocks for jocks. I took that too. Yeah.
And I was into rocks. Well, no, I didn't take rocks for jocks, but and then I took at least we didn't call it that anyway. It was quite challenging.
The joke,
but
yeah. I took it at Colorado State.
But what really was the important part of the whole situation was understanding how these things actually form. Like, I've worked with some people whom I have seen parallels, and then I see where there's still like some problems with conceptualization. Like I argued with Eugene Basharov with regards to just on the forum thread once, and totally in good taste, of course, where we discussed the nature of whether or not the actual solar wind was a wind. And I was like, no. And I had to explain why it wasn't a wind and why it behaves the way it does. And I also had explained the same thing to Ben. And then it becomes clear to me once I was explaining it one time that it was it was clearly it's clearly the way that mesas are formed and many mountain ranges. And I began to understand how the whole Colorado Plateau got formed. And this is, well, this is what we needed to know. We needed to see how this happened. And now that we have mechanisms that we can actually begin to piece this together.
Right. It's like there's this split, though. There's this divide where people are, they're either totally blind to the new theoretical sciences and the new paradigm, or they're comparing the two and coming on board.
Well, it becomes things like with Andy's work, Andy Hall, and the arc blast. When I began to understand how arc blasts had to work.
Oh, you mean the mountain range stuff?
Oh yes, clearly.
Yeah.
And I began to understand how this had to happen. Then I began to understand more, like the Ring of Fire, for example, and why that's there. Why Hawaii's there. This is not as hard to understand as I thought it was. You begin to see things electrically.
Right.
And begin to understand how current has to flow. I mean, it certainly doesn't go through water very easily. And it will generally go across the tops of the water and then towards the edges of land on high areas.
Wow.
And you're going to have currents flowing in through those.
Far out.
And suddenly, oh, well, that's why you have volcanoes. It's just picking up the land. That's why they're grabbing the currents over a large area and putting them in. And this is where you get things like Yellowstone National Park. And same thing with Hawaii, same thing with Iceland. Now, of course, on the other side of the continent, the Atlantic Ocean doesn't have nearly as many volcanoes because it's not nearly as big in size.
Let me back up a little bit there. What he's talking about, what you're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, would be the sort of invisible, let's say dark mode, nested plasma filaments that are connecting to the Earth, right?
Yes.
So
at least 410 megawatts, likely way more.
Right. So there's a bunch of invisible electric currents because we're actually in the sun's atmosphere. Let's back up a little bit more. We're inside the plasma sphere, right? So we're in, and that's when you're talking about solar wind, is actually the atmosphere of the sun itself, which is electrical. So
yes, basically you're in the, if you think of the heliopods or the extent of the sun's influence, that would be the extent of its electric field.
Well, that would be the secondary, like double layer of the plasma envelope of the star, right? Where the corona, close would be the first double layer.
The double layer is right along the photosphere. Yes, that's the first double layer.
Okay, so you've got several of them, though. I mean, you looked at Don's.
You should have several. You should have some on top and bottom of the stars. That's where they're predicted to be. Because
they go out radially. That they'll alternate. Will they not? I mean, you've seen Don's superconducting super currents, right? That are just like force free.
Well, I read his book.
No, his latest work.
Okay, well then, clearly I'm not. But they should be like they're predicted by the Alvain model to be at the poles. But apparently, Don actually described in his book that he also said that there should be some to the sides as well. So go on. What has he recently found? Tell me about it.
No, I'm just saying that it's supported. We're actually inside the plasma atmosphere of the sun. Just wanted to cover that because people might be shocked to know that the sun is. Well, Wall puts it. Ancient man looked up and saw a campfire in the sky. Modern man, thanks to what's his name, the nuclear guy,
Sir Arthur Eddington.
Thanks to Eddington, we have a a nuclear campfire in the sky. I love listening to Wall talk, and lately he's been going into the left brain, right brain, human learning, and later at some point I've got some stuff that I think you will really find useful, because I've been going into the fourth way, Spensky, and the different brain centers. As three brain beings, you have an instinctive center, an emotional center, and an intelligent center, and each of those in turn has three centers. Similarly, like your intelligence center has an instinctive center, and it has an emotional center, and it has an intelligence center. Isn't that weird?
I can't say it wouldn't be surprising. I only know what I know when I look at a brain and I look down at it, and I can see that it's two hemispheres. I can see that there must be some way that it's being able to store charge. I don't know if it's a capacitor or not. There's some very interesting stuff going on with the brain. The fact that it's electrical in nature by itself is very interesting.
I'll say.
And it's more to it than what you said. I think that the word atmosphere might be a misnomer. The reason I use field or electric field more
Okay, go. Yeah.
is because of exactly what I was arguing with Eugene about. He was saying, no, the pressure of this wind coming in will cause this buckling effect. And I said, no, it can't. And he was saying, why? And I go, because this gas, it's just not, gas passes through other gases. This is not gas passing through gases. This is a barrier being a magnetic electric field around the Earth. It's a whole different ballgame. And the reason that it compresses, the reason that Ben's work works, Anyway,
his plasma mode experiment.
Well, his app, actually, the reason that it works in the first place, the disaster prediction app and his predictions itself, is because he can see when the quote-unquote blobs of plasma are about to deform. They call it deforming, but in actuality, it's just responding electrically to a Coulomb charge. There's an actual simple formula for it. We use it to determine how much capacitance or energy a capacitor can store. So you basically say, okay, the amount of charge that these plates can hold is equivalent to the voltage across them divided by the distance they have between each other, squared.
Okay.
But when you want to reverse that formula or rearrange it, it becomes, now we understand what the fair weather voltage is. I think you understand what I mean by that. The ionospheric voltage of 320,000 volts, just above our heads at all times.
Right.
It's about 70 so kilometers up there. Now, doing the math, you end up looking at putting that formula to work in this particular case. So you actually have the volts is V, so it's proportional to voltage, but it is inversely proportional to the Coulomb charge that's put across it. That's what the distance is squared. See? So D squared is related to the actual charge of the two plates, and the voltage between them will determine how much charge they can hold. So if you have a blob of plasma, say a large blob with so many coulombs of energy, just massive, obviously it came from the sun, and so it approaches the Earth reacts by using the formula, and the formula says that the distance must shrink. So the distance of the ionosphere drops closer to the Earth. It has the same amount of voltage, but now the Coulomb charge across the two plates is much higher. And if you get much higher than that, say with a planet impinging on the surface, then you're actually going to have where you can get that stuff dropping down to, measured in yards and feet and meters and so forth. So you actually end up having utes and electrical scalping directly of the terrain, and that's where you get these wonderful, what are they called, mesas and so forth.
Well, thankfully, we don't get a lot of that nowadays.
Thank God, no. But you can see where this is where, when I went out there and felt the rocks myself, you can see clearly that people who go, this was caused by water, you can say, well, no, that's caused by water. You can touch it. It's very smooth. You can see the rocks are smooth. Water is very good at that. But when you look at the other stuff, clearly not. It's very rough. It's pitted. It looks smooth at a distance, but it isn't when you put your hands on it.
You know, yeah, Billy Gelverton's experiments are great for that.
Yes, yes. Like I said, Billy is fantastic with his work too. I found, like I said, I would argue, well, let's put it this way. I would argue with every single person, I think, alive today with regards to the electric universe theory, except for maybe Donald Scott. Even Wall and I would have debates. But don't get me wrong. In no way would I ever complain, though. Minor things, you know, like I don't agree with everyone on anything, really. Even Renz and I had wonderful discussions, but that's good. I said that we shouldn't agree. If we agreed, then nothing would ever move forward. We don't want that. We're not trying to build a religion here. We're trying to build a scientific consensus that, yes, stuff went down. Here's the new timeline. Let's figure this stuff out and try to put it in chronological order. That'd be good. That'd be a good step.
As long as you can resist proselytizing your ideas and proceeding in error through pride, right? Once you realize an error, you don't persist in it through pride. It's a tendency, because you know how people, they have their inherency to want to learn it. That's not, you don't have any of that in the EU.
This is where belief is a real big problem.
I agree.
Let me when I thought about this, I thought about it succinctly in the sense that when you actually let a belief, or, well, as Thomas Hardy said, you know, science commits suicide when it adopts a creed, but even more so when you have a situation where these people are trying to come towards the truth, and then you have perhaps someone who wants to say, no, like the old guard, for example. Velikovsky is gone now, but it's even worse with, for example, Einstein. Einstein had a myriad of followers, and to tell them that they've wasted their lives following a religion that he built, that he didn't even realize he did build, and that they are hero worshiping someone who does not deserve to be hero worshipped, besides in certain cases where I agree that he was doing what he, in fact, great work. The stuff he won the Nobel Prize for is actually great work. He didn't win anything with regards to relativity, with regards to the Nobel Prize. Einstein won the Nobel Prize for regarding the how much energy you can get out of light rays, and basically understood that the waveforms were changing, increasing their energy patterns, but the actual speed of the wave was staying constant. This is where you get into this whole, later on, E equals mc squared and so forth came out of that.
Yeah, and, well, funny, because we go ahead, please.
Well, no, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the concept of the formula itself, but like Wall said, we end up forgetting the term. M does not stand for matter; it stands for mass.
Right,
and that means
so all of the E, M, and the speed of light are all part of a physical system. And am I wrong?
No, of course not. You're totally right.
So it's not I don't want to actually interrupt you. Keep going.
Well, I was just going to say, if you can rearrange any formula, or you begin to realize, well, what causes mass, what causes the speed of light to be at that speed, and then you start doing the formulations thereof, what does cause that? Like, for example, since an electromagnetic wave, or EM wave, that we call light, is actually electromagnetic, it actually has those components in there, transverse electromagnetic waves. The question therefore becomes, well, what happens if we actually change the electrical radiative pressure of, for example, the sun's electrical environment? If the charge changes, Does the speed of these oscillations change? Does the frequency of light change? Does the speed of light change? This is the same thing that I started thinking about when we were dealing with megaliths. You start going into the actual past of megalithic construction. And then, for example, as anyone knows who does any engineering, if you heat up an object, you change its properties. An object that is at room temperature behaves differently than an object at 100 degrees Celsius, 1,000 degrees Celsius, and so forth. And that's why we build things with different alloys and so forth to combat these different stresses.
Right.
Now, or create different tendencies. Now, no one's ever come across this one. What happens when a material is at 100,000 volts compared to a material that's at 0 volts relative to the Earth? Now, does that electrical potential change the material's inherent constituency? Does it change its hardness? Does it change its brittleness? Does it change its
Well, how close
malleability or any of those properties?
Yeah. Isn't there something here where we should be considering how close it is to the Earth?
Well, obviously,
It'll appear to attract in a certain range.
Gaps. Don't get me wrong. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if you're on a different planet, or the Earth itself is from a different time, way back when we had more electrical energy, then the actual surface of the Earth was at a different charge level. Let's imagine it at 1,000,000 volts compared to 0. Well, then the ionosphere is at 1,320,000 or whatever, or even more. Who knows? But the point is that every single thing on Earth would be different then. I think it would just be like as if everything was now at 100 degrees Celsius. But it's not physically at 100 degrees Celsius, just the properties of materials are different. You have electrical strength, which is higher. Therefore, the resonances of crystals are now higher.
Wow.
The crystals themselves actually change because we use crystals as electrical oscillators in circuits.
Sure.
I know specifically that they change and start vibrating piezoelectrically with a whole myriad of different frequencies depending on the crystal itself. If I want 12 megahertz, I use a quartz crystal. If I want 8 megahertz, I use a particular type of crystal.
Like a germanium.
Well, you get the idea. So the point is that these crystals, when are actually something that might be considered something that have had power back then, because they would have worked on a whole different system. A computer would have just sparked
somebody up regular. If you're like classically trained, this will just completely screw you up, because you got the whole idea of the quantum effects and the potential hill and all that in semiconductors, and this is totally yeah. Go ahead.
None of that. You could never have a computer. A computer today, they would just fly into electrical sparks and be gone. So I'm concerned with how would you, if you had 10,000 years since the last catastrophe before the golden age ends and you have the quote-unquote clash of the titans, before that time frame you have 7,000 years or so, maybe less, maybe more, who knows. So let's say at least 2,000, let's say probably 3, probably 4, something like that. If you accept that, and you accept that they were building with huge stones back then the question becomes, they wouldn't be building for the adoration of the gods, because that epoch never happened yet.
Right.
So the catastrophes and the right brain thinking of being in shock all the time and thinking the gods were going to kill you, chicken little, the sky is falling, didn't happen. So now you're before that time. What would the society be like? Well, we don't find writing back then, and I think the reason we don't find writing back then is because the same reason we don't write on buildings now. If we do, we put a plaque up, and that's it, on metal. Like we don't do, everything would be done with paper and stuff like that. Nothing would exist now from that long ago. If we had built cars, they would all be gone. They would all be rusted to pieces, surely, in 200 years.
Oh my God!
So
I do want to add something in here. In the beginning of his book, The Psychology of Man's Possible Evolution, P.D. Ouspensky, on the very first page, says, in 25 years of lecturing, the one thing he had noticed was people people's inability to understand that they were hearing new things, that is, things that they had not heard before, that they would take it and convert it into their own habitual language and contradict. And invariably they would do this and assign their motives to whatever was being said, or and so forth. So it's this like word salad. And the same guy that I showed you a quote from, this philosopher, says the same thing. So it's refreshing, you know. It's nice when you're trained and you're a scientist and all that, that you guys can communicate with each other in a way that's meaningful, right? To
Right.
one another. And I don't know what I'm getting at here other than to say that, do you think there was wide open telepathy back then? Because Ted seems to think that.
You know, there's a lot to say that there's a lot of things different back then. If I take things at the way that I interpret them, that would mean to say that that general Egyptologists have very little idea what the hell they're talking about, and that general historians generally don't really know much about what they're talking about about certain periods, especially when we go beyond Rome. So if we take that as face value and move forward from there, then all we have to base on is that clearly older stones are larger, things from older times seem to be larger, and people from older times seem to be larger.
Yeah.
It seems that they would have existed in a situation where they were quite possibly more advanced than us. The reason we can't understand what they were doing is because we simply were not, we generate electricity the way that we generate it now, by spinning magnets. And then we built this electrical grid to do that. But if we don't understand how their electrical system worked, because our grounds don't shake, like a pyramid makes perfect sense for so many reasons. If you were in a situation where electricity was needed, number one, and number two, if it was a situation where you were trying to control earthquakes, because every place you put a vibrating pyramid shaking the ground at a certain frequency would keep the earth from building up and then slipping, building up and then slipping. So you would want these things. Plus, they would create an electrostatic shield that would attract lightning bolts, so nobody around you would get hit by lightning and die. So you could live near them, and they would send off a nice vibration, aerating the soil, everything like that. These would be things that you would want to have happen. In addition, it seems that they have the possibility of you being as piezoelectric power sources. And dare I say, it seems that even other times seems to be somehow related to actual computing. Now, that alone bothered me until I started thinking about how you would do that. And understanding that all the metal pieces, anything that was a semiconductor, anything that they would use as an inductor would be long gone. Long gone. In fact, as the Egyptians would get a hold of it, they would be considering that to be something that they don't have full control over. In fact, there would be a certain point, say 100 AD or so, maybe even 100 BC, somewhere in that vicinity, they said that the Ark of the Covenant finally stopped working. I believe that anything, now that's assuming that there even was one, but electrically speaking, it would be not hard to make one of those things if there was that many volts to play with. If you understand my meaning. If you would have that much voltage to play with. We're talking like we're talking 2,000 volts per meter straight up. Right now we're at 100 volts per meter. But if you were over that, I mean, you're talking the ability to generate 8,000 volts in just a few meters of pole.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about my experience taking RL or linear circuits. It was a lab. It was 5 days a week, really intense, from like 8 in the morning till noon, or 1 till noon. And they didn't bring out the inductors till way into there. It's like they did. At no point did they show us the analogy to the magnetic circuit, if you know what I mean. Where
I do.
yes, of course.
I had to play with them and learn how they worked before I even learned the formulas that govern them.
Well, I think you've lost me at some point, so it's hopeless for anybody who's listening who hasn't put down to solve a circuit before or something.
Well, it's not really that hard. I mean, basically, you just have to understand that whenever you start having charge separation, you're going to just start having certain electrical principles just automatically start happening. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, when I hear about what Hans Alfvén was saying and what Dr. Don Scott wrote.
Tell us what you do when you get capacitance. You get a certain threshold of, like, the way they tell you in an encyclopedia would be that it's like that's actually where it stops making sense, because in a DC circuit it's like water going through a pipe. But then once you get once you get to capacitance, it's like a whole nother ball game.
Well, in alternating circuits or alternating currents, a capacitor is an open circuit,
right?
And it's a closed circuit. To DC, a capacitor is a break. It is a break. There's no electrical connection between those 2 points. The only reason it works is because it charges and discharges and allows the AC to go through it. But an inductor, basically, when you have the DC go through it, it becomes an open circuit because it builds. And the two principles are really just very simple things. They're called EMF, or the electromotive force, and MMF, or the magnetomotive force. So in an inductor, the MMF is like spinning a water wheel to a certain speed, and then it just stays there, not giving any more resistance. The moment you stop supplying water to the circuit, all of that electrical motion that you have built up, or magnetic motion, I guess you could say, is actually discharged, which is why you can get what's called inductive kicks, which cause those great big sparks to fly in when you open up power grids and so forth.
Yeah.
But a capacitor really works on what's called just an electric field. It's the same field that separates, like I said, the ionosphere to the ground, except that's a spherical field. But a capacitor does it just with two plates. And you just put the two plates together, and the distance between them tells you how much charge can be held up between those two plates, because basically you have one plate pulling against the other plate electrically. And they can store energy that way. That's basically what happens. So they're basically like very short-lived batteries.
So when does the lightning come in and the big sprites going off into space, and when does it break down? What causes that to happen?
Well, the breakdown is actually happens all the time when these leader charges start building out electric fields, and you can actually see the fields. We call them cloud layers, and they begin to
get into Kong Pop stuff.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you can actually just quite see that it's. Well, I didn't even know that that's what he was talking about, but Kung Pao, I've heard of his work, but with Ben, I assume.
He talks about how in the tropical storms that you get all this water picked up in the air and then dumped all at once.
Oh, yes, clearly.
That more than could be accounted for by evaporation.
Oh, yes, I think that it is. I think that he's completely right, and that these currents are constantly flowing all over the earth. The only reason that we're not affected by them very much is because they're likely not just at the surface, but just below the surface. So we actually have a situation where the earth is actually, I mean, we understand that it must be generating a magnetic field. We understand that there's current that's required to do that. We understand that there's a capacitor. We understand that the dielectric field strength of air is actually fairly high. But over the entire surface of the Earth, if you took into consideration every single lightning bolt strike as a plasma conduit because that's what it is, and you measure the resistance of that, you would realize that's pretty low. So you put all that compared to the actual Earth size and how many lightning strikes you have, and you realize that the actual Earth has quite of a low resistance, all the air considered. So you actually have a direct, you have a direct connection through the aurora straight into the actual belts, or the aurora belts, into the what's called the jet stream. And then of course right along the ecliptic you have 2 points on the north and south part of the equator that reach out and start forming the Van Allen radiation belts. And this is where that circuit is. Plus there's a secondary circuit flowing inside of that one, and that's where you have you can actually probably see the results of that, an impact on the Earth, from Michael Steinbacher pointed it out there with regards to the American Southwest and in relation to Hudson Bay and Baffin Island. When you begin to realize that you have a primary circuit hitting at the North Pole and the South Pole, and you have a secondary circuit sort of hitting at the Four Corners area and the Hudson Bay, and it's in reverse. This is where things get interesting. You have to be able to piece together the actual circuits to actually see how the land actually moved.
Nice. Well, can we compare this to the brain? Can you think the brain has got a kind of a planet?
Well, you can actually, it's kind of interesting. When I started thinking about this, I started actually thinking where you were. The solar system is inside the electric field of the galaxy. The sun itself dwarfs our own planet's electrical field, which is called its magnetosphere. And inside of that is us, which has our own electric field. We call the, well, some people call it aurora, or whatever, but it's more like, you can actually measure it. It's called Kirlian energy, and you can actually take pictures of it. You've probably seen it on National Geographic or something like that. And clearly that changes with certain states of human mind and consciousness and so forth. And of course, you know, whether or not you're pregnant and all these other interesting factors. So clearly, especially with Rupert Sheldrake's work, you can see that these, especially with the cutting off a cocoon, what happens to the bug inside? Do you get to grow two halves of a bug? No, you get a smaller bug. Well, it's the same type of situation here, where we're sort of growing into a field and we're relating to the earth, and we resonate at the same frequency as it does, and so on and so on and so on. Well, our brain inside of our own head likely has its own field with our own spinal cord, which has to be there in some way to create this voltage difference, which gives us actual power and movement. So
kind of a fractal recursive pattern there or something?
Well, and then of course, then we understand that each cell itself has its own electric field of several million volts between the nucleus and the cell wall.
Wow.
Which is where you,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and this is where, but it's very short, it's very small, like there's no charge held, like it's very low charge, but it's the high potential. This is where I start thinking about things like spontaneous human combustion, how just like a volcano just goes, this just goes,
oh right,
in a very similar fashion. It's like a voltage breakdown, and that's why there's such high heat for short periods of time. Normally, it's a regular charge discharging as per normal, and then suddenly something goes off kilter, and the whole thing seems to arc like crazy and create megaton explosions. But on a human scale, that's clearly not happening. But it's enough to incinerate the center of the body, which is incredibly hot, but not burn the rest of the room down. Like, how did that happen?
Well, if what you're saying is correct, then you're like reminding me of Bruce Lipton and his, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I've heard his name.
The physiology guy and the connectedness of the body to the environment and all that stuff. It's been a while.
Well, it's clear because it's happening with trees. I mean, I think he was at EU 2015.
Was he?
Well, I remember watching him talk about trees and being stuck to the earth and stuff like that.
Was that
Grounding. I'm not sure. I just remember having a conversation.
Oh, okay.
I was flirting with Cameron at the time, so.
No, anyway, go on. This is awesome, Neil. You really are into this stuff.
Oh God, yes. You should hear me when I was sitting there with Larry and Bruce. Bruce was like, "My good God," Bruce Laybourne. Oh, it was crazy.
Well, you know, I was kind of just distracted from the whole thing. I went on looking into the question of why it was after 30 years of you know, these great arguments and this falsifying facts and all this other stuff. Why was it that 30 years had gone by of you know, the electric universe of people like Ralph Jurgens and others, you know, the size of the sun is not right. It shouldn't be. It isn't what it should be. And, you know, the whole neutrino detectors, and we didn't detect what we should have, and all this other stuff. And I decided it had to be something about people and their, and it turns out it is. They've got some, there's a modern psychological model called the meaning maintenance model or something like that, MMM. And this has been thoroughly tested and stuff, where you have different fluid categories of personality for the egoic personality, right? So you've got
Right.
personal self-worth, and then group value, or once, you know, group esteem, and then you have symbolic survival and closure. Those are the others. So those four groups, if one changes, the other one will compensate. And so people don't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very clearly, this is what happens. I mean, it's obvious. Even when Anthony Pratt was sitting there in that video, Universe Cosmology Quest, and he was quite visibly pissed off that they had the audacity to say that their predictions about a expanding universe was correct, when the model of his model predicts 2.8 Kelvin. They see 3. Other models predicted around 3. The Big Bang universe predicted around 50. And they said, oh, well, I guess we're wrong, but so what? We'll scoop that under the rug and call it 3. This is the predictive accuracy of the model, right? Is just gone.
You're talking about the CMB?
Yes.
Yeah.
And but the predictive accuracy of the model is toast. I mean, it's quite clear that.
Well, let's not forget Halton Arp and his contribution to.
Oh, I would never forget Halton Arp. I mean, all you have to do when anyone ever goes, "What about the redshift controversy?" And then you just go, "Have you ever heard of NGC 7603?" And they go, "Well, no." And then you go, "Well, you look that up. You come back to me when you're done looking at that up. But chances are I'll never see you again, because it'll blow your mind, and you'll be considered." You'll just never be able to deal with that.
They'll come wave the layperson journal where they airbrushed out the matter bridge.
Well, that was Markarian 205.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the one that Don is put right in his book. He was very upset about that.
It's an upsetting thing. It's like their honor is
it's dishonorable, and it's falsification. People seem to think that falsification works in the positive, or science advances in the positive. No, it advances in the negative. I had this exact same situation where I was dealing with people on a forum or something, and they were having a discussion. I remember I posted something along the lines of, "You must understand that it's not been proven wrong yet. Like, the electric universe is a better model." And someone was sitting there having a discussion about the intricacies of what electricity might be. And I said, okay, but that's a meta, because we can't study it. We don't really know it yet. Like, I mean, it's not, I mean, if we want to get into it, it will probably be something that we'll study, because if plasma cosmology gets funding, you'll want to understand the nature of electromagnetism to a great extent, which we might be able to then predict things to the nth degree, to the same direct way that we can predict the colors that are going to appear on an LCD screen. And we can also touch it. and cause it to cause motion on that screen. I mean, that's what electrical science allows us to do. So if we have an electrical model of the heavens, we should be able to put it to that degree of accuracy. This is where the predictive model of the Big Bang cosmology just absolutely fails to realize that their model is such a failure. Like they're constantly surprised. We're not surprised,
Right.
They are. And it's the problem that they don't realize that their model is defunct, and you could find a better model. Like if you go, well, the Maxwell's equations, for example, are not universal. I'd be like, okay, you'd have to really prove that. Because right now, if you look at what space is and you go, okay, space is mostly plasma. Well, how does plasma work in the laboratory? Plasma works thusly. That's how it works. So there's no real debate for me. It just is what it is, because that's how the formulas play out very clearly. Now, that's how it reacts to itself. Now, you've studied different aspects of it, double layers, vortices.
Let me stop you right there. You're saying that a particle in an electric field is motivated in a direction, and you have to apply like the Lorentz force, because it changes the electrical field as a result of it moving, right, particles in the field. Go back a little bit and explain to us about how plasma behaves.
Well, plasma behaves, if we're right, plasma behaves in space the same way as it does in the laboratory. And it is, some people have described it as like a fluid that generates electric currents, a magnetic fluid that generates electric currents, or or vice versa. But
Depends on which instant you look at it. It's kind of like looking at
yes, exactly,
a resonant circuit almost.
Exactly. So the best thing, in fact, exactly, because they are, LC circuit is exactly what you're dealing with. But when you actually see the actual way that the plasma behaves, it follows simple guidelines and rules. Like if you put a metal ball in it, there's going to be a brighter field around the metal ball, and you're going, why is that field there? Well, it's there because as soon as you immerse it in this plasma, the electrons are going to go to the surface. The positive charges are going to go to the center, and suddenly you have charge separation just from that alone, just from being there. By having a ball form inside plasma, luckily, electricity makes spheres, so it's very handy. But automatically, you're going to have charge separation. And then, of course, it's going to automatically generate an electric field. That electric field will extend for as far as it can until it meets something with equivalent force to stop it, which is how planets and suns and so forth have their fields. Now, how a magnetic field is formed, there has to be a spiraling current. Well, luckily, the Earth is spinning, and you actually have a spiral of electricity. You can just watch it when the aurora touches the atmosphere and creates the jet stream going underneath of it. You can see the current spinning in that direction.
Right, because these currents, they wrap around each other like a girl's pigtail.
Yeah, you're getting the idea. Yes.
Yeah. So
And
they're what do they call it? Braided.
yes. Well, this is where, so you just basically start measuring how much current is going in there based on the size of the sphere. And obviously a larger sphere should have higher electrical potentials, electric voltages. And this is not rocket science. This is literally, I mean, this is how you judge. Like, I mean, we're listening on a computer. That computer is running off of these principles, which are established as fact enough that we can run a computer and talk across the world with it. Like, I mean, there's...
Oh, you heretic, how dare you blaspheme the genius level priests of the great knowledge of the world. You know, it is a priest class that you got going on.
It is.
With these crazy mathematical just fantasies.
Well, there's the same thing happens with biology, where people who are like me go, how did that do that? It just happened naturally because the electrolyte decided to blah, blah, blah. And I go, no, it didn't. If you watch the actual mitochondria run along a chain, it's clearly performing itself like a machine. This is really interesting stuff here, folks. I would have to program that to get that to work like that, and it wouldn't happen naturally. Trust me. Now, I don't necessarily like to go into understanding what that might imply, because I can't really say that that we're programmed. Life had to start somewhere. So I will have to say that there are things I don't know yet, and leave it at that. But
we'll call it a micro concentration of a cosmic manifestation. So that you've got concentration, right? So you got the Earth, then you have people, and you have bacteria, maybe viruses, maybe molecules and atoms.
Well, also, of course, we don't really, I mean, now that we don't understand the nature of what we are in, and we don't understand the nature of life, we don't understand the nature of our planet or our history, how we can possibly say that there is no life in the atmosphere of another planet is beyond me. Like Sir Fred Hoyle's work with panspermia and the idea that viruses are coming to Earth through the comet tail of Venus is very interesting. It's also very interesting because comets tend to spread plague whenever they came near us. Just plague of Justinian, for example, in 535. So what's going on there? What is this real? Is there actually a reason to fear this? Do electrical interactions generate new life? Does that explain why you have these balls of actual blood plasma that seems to fall from the sky and just blop over the place? Like, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't know the answers to these questions, but I'm saying there is simply way, way more interesting answers now that we can actually look at without going, this is superstition. Basically, the electric universe allows you to actually take into account religion, spirituality, and mythology and study them rationally. I mean, did anyone ever clue in to the fact that every time I watched Supernatural and every time I watched those Ghost Hunter shows, you're sitting there watching them use salt, sulfur, and cold iron to stop these electrical things, and using EKG meters? Like, come on, you're basically saying, let's check the electric field in this particular room to see if there's ghosts. What are ghosts then? The electric goddamn fields. Like, what's a UFO if it creates a shape and causes you to have memory blackouts and other things like that because of the electric field and magnetic field that actually does cause these things? I mean, it's quite possible this happens. Now, does this mean that I'm correct and it explains everything? No, but it's certainly an avenue of exploration that suddenly becomes available to us. I don't understand why we can't. I mean, this is just something we can do.
We're utterly anthropocentric. I remember.
Yes. And then, of course, hybridology. And as O.J. Hagan used to say, he was a scholar from 2015. He's the guy that got me into hybridization when I started realizing that he was absolutely right. He said to me, he goes, so what are human beings? I go, well, what other animal has a thing sticking out the front of their face? I go, an elephant? He goes, with the same skin color as us. And I go, a pig? I go, do we look like pig monkeys to you? And I went, oh my God, we are pig monkeys. That's exactly what we look like.
We are pig monkeys, but all biological life. Think about this. Viruses are barely classifiable as life because they have no metabolism, right? Biological life on Earth is like it's almost like some kind of, like some kind of organ, that's on the outer surface of the, and it moves in a certain lateral region. But the planets and the sun may look at us the same way we look at a virus and say, well, it only has some of the properties of something that's alive. So we may not even have any concept of what life really is. And that's where all those morphic fields and everything comes in.
Hey, Earth, it's Jupiter here. I need to tell you something. Skip, are you sitting down? Because you got humans.
Yeah, don't joke. There's people who've said that, and
I just watched a Facebook thing on it. Just laughed.
I've been studying a lot of Gnosticism too.
Well, Julian Jaynes has been working so much. Julian Jaynes. Oh my God, I said that. Julian West.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
His work, I've seen his work twice. He read my paper on planetary creation. Like, I basically broke all this stuff down, and that's what made me want to do the geological toolbox. And I began to realize once I get that down, then really the only thing I have left is to start going into ancient cultures and start understanding that, because there's not, I mean, this is where I need to go. I mean, this is just clearly the next step.
Well,
Because
your metal ball that you put in a plasma field, that metal ball is also a bit of plasma. It's just much denser, right? Much harder to motivate and to deform.
well, the only place that isn't plasma is the surface of the Earth. Everything else is pretty much plasma. If you go up too high, you enter into an ionized state. If you go down too low, you enter into an ionized state. So you should have a plasma, number one, and number two, the current that's traveling in through the poles and out along the elliptic has to continue, and the secondary circuits must continue as well because of the virtue of the primary circuit. Therefore, the rotational field of it going down through the Earth, across and back up, and then out along the atmosphere, and then down through the north, and continuing that loop, which generates most of the weather on the planet, I assume, is very much has to be accounted for. So if you start doing the math on that, just simply doing the math, you start getting your amps, and then you start realizing, how does electricity travel? It travels in concentrated Birkeland currents. How would those Birkeland currents look in the atmosphere? Well, they would look like thunderclouds and so forth. How would they look on the ground? Well, to me, they would look like conduits of molten rock.
Those Lichtenberg figures, you mean?
No, I meant volcanoes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, you're right. Like
They would flow into the a magma chamber, which they call, which is below the surface of the Earth, which is not really a magma chamber. It's probably
so those
a plasma focus, a dense plasma focus. And when it starts breaking down, and the circuit is no longer, like, it basically has an inertia to it, a magnetic moment, like an inductor. And when the current goes somewhere else, like let's say to one side or to another, and travels to a different volcano, or to a different mountain, and that mountain is about to become a volcano, whatever. The point is that the other one still has induction. It creates an inductive kick, and it's going to want to arc. So I can envision a situation where these things are going off like that. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm right, and that would take a lot of measuring to determine, and of course I wouldn't want to be anywhere near a volcano when it goes off, but you get my point. There's basically, that would be a good thing. Once we start understanding volcanoes, that's the next step after comets. You understand comets and you understand volcanoes, and then you can begin to understand what the Earth is. Now that is where you're going to start understanding, because then you can start understanding what other planets really are, and what the sun really is, and why those gas giants probably aren't really gas giants.
How about people, right? When you have that feeling on the bus where you've suddenly grown into the field that's around you in awareness, and into your own field, you've ejected the consciousness, as the Tibetans would put it.
That's kind of ironic. I would agree that that feeling is not why I'm here, but it's not why I'm here in front of you right now. But it is why I'm here on the Earth, I think, or maybe a combination of that and the statement, I am the universe made conscious, able to turn around and look back upon itself and wonder what it is. So it's sort of my job to understand the universe, only because the universe gave me the ability to understand it. Like, I mean, it really did. Like, I'm now conscious in the era which I can now understand most of the world through, because books were too slow. Now I have the internet. I'm talking to you across the world. And I can now compress my time enough to understand the entire nature of the universe itself through many different sources. Now that I know it, when I know it for full, for true and for real and for true, whatever, when I know it for real and for true, then the universe knows it, because I technically am part of it. Therefore, by definition, it must know. So it now knows, and I've done my job. The universe can rest happy. I'm on it. I'm on it, universe. You just rest. I got you. I got your back here.
So have you done any of the contemplative practices, like the meditation, or? Because these really well-trained, the guys who spend their whole lives, like the yogis and whatnot.
Well,
the ones raiding.
I was wondering if I was going to do that myself. Was I going to become someone who wanted to be that type of spiritual? And then I realized I don't, because you can have pure happiness, so to speak, but your life will be without meaning. I had to take risks to do what I did. Like this summer, I took the biggest risk I've ever done in my entire life. And I basically felt very clearly like in a gambling terms, I rolled.
You had to leap and grab the ladder or the rope.
Yeah. Or I bet on 32 black and won, or I doubled down on a 15 and won.
So, so you got help getting across to a higher state of consciousness?
No, I meant that I had to realize that without actually, perhaps maybe I did, when you think about it. But the trip I took allowed me to, I was rolling all the dice that this was going to happen. And I made it happen. Like, not like for any weird reason, like I didn't get any, stocky or weird or anything. I just meant that I was going to, I knew what I wanted and I went for it.
What do you mean, Cameron?
Well, that too. Her especially, actually. But what I meant was, that was a big roll of the dice, but also with the Thunderbolts group when I went down as well. And I made a lot more friends there as well this year. And I can't clearly going to be there next year.
So awesome. You had this wonderful beaming light coming off of you.
Thank you. I don't know what to say about that, because I really am. Obviously, I couldn't keep the smile off my face. Everyone was just the greatest, it seems.
The naive, stupid saint that I am, I had a weird dream where these 15-foot tall people were all standing around me, and one of them goes, "You're no saint." And that was about 6 months ago. But I left, and I'm still on cloud 9, right? And then you go back into the real world, the regular world, and you have, and I carry it with me. I have a real innocence, I'm not cynical. Everybody gets trust and benefit of the doubt and all that. So I don't have common sense, like a lot of these, like you electrical engineer types. You got a lot of these guys that are so smart, but they don't have a lot of street smart.
Yes, actually, that's one of the reasons why I'm inviting Cameron to come here. She was like, "I want to be there right now," and I said, and she goes, "I feel like I can't be. What'd she say? I can't be fair to you." And I said, I would not have I wouldn't have asked you to marry me if I didn't know how you were. You want to get here. So I trust that you want to, and that's all I could ever hope for. So if you do, let's make it happen. I'll help you. And she's in her work and she's doing her thing to get over here. But with regards to that, yes, I did take a big risk, but it was definitely worth it. I wasn't going to allow her to escape another year. Last year I met her, And the moment I met her, like when I had to put her number into my telephone, because I had walked up to her and I said to her, I was getting all the numbers for all the scholars, like Mohammed's number and Owen's number and Luke's and everyone else's.
Yeah, yeah.
And I gave her my little red book and I said, write your number in here. I'm getting all the numbers for everyone so that we can like make a little WhatsApp group and stuff. And she was happy and she said, oh, here you go. And then I said, don't worry, I'm not going to use it to like, you know, flirt with you or like call you or anything like that or something. And then as I was walking away, I heard her say, you can if you want to. And I just stopped. And then I didn't look back. I just stopped for a second. And I said, that really happened. And I moved on.
That's awesome. Yeah, she's another one that was just really like a lot of love, a lot of that, I guess, that unified kind of stuff. That
right there is what it's all about. That for me, this is the thing. That's what attracted me about her. I was like, no, you, I'm not letting you get away. You are exactly what I want. You know, like I didn't think I would ever meet someone whom I wanted like that. Like in the exact, like she was just exactly what I was looking for. She wanted to share the same things in her heart that I want to share.
Nice.
I wanted to get the good parts of me out. Like, I can think like Machiavellian in those games, but as you said, the worldly part. Now that's very interesting because that's one of the reasons, like I said, I wanted her to come here because she has to see where I'm from so she can go, I can see why you had trouble driving through San Francisco. Yes, I'm glad you
give her a little context on, yeah.
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 Like my parents' road that they live on has not been paved ever.
No, I got you.
You know.
It's not maintained for public travel. No, that's awesome, man. I really, I mean, I'm not usually the type to go in for a romantic love story, but yours is very special.
Yeah. Well, some people thought it was completely insane, but
good.
Well, it would have been until she was even a little concerned about it until I finally showed up there in California, and I let her have as long as she needed. It's like she said, I wouldn't be free until this particular day in the afternoon, and I respected that, even though I knew generally where she was going to be at because she was obviously not trying to hide anything from me.
Got to do that with chicks or they'll get mad.
Well, I didn't want to mess with her, you know, feng shui. She was doing something with people, and I was a new thing, so I didn't want that to be there. Now, after the disaster happened, where I was like, I don't know if I can get home, type of thing. She was concerned, of course, that this was all like. She wasn't really concerned. I got to stress that this is sort of the fears you have in the back of your head rather than the fears you have out in the open. But she was like, this is not some sort of trick, is it? And I said, no. I'll call my friends and actually get myself home. Don't worry. You said you had 4 days. I'm giving you 4 days. Yes, exactly. So after that happened, and that then she brought up later something about a green card, and I didn't know what she was talking about. And then she talked to me later about it. She goes, you're not just like marrying me for a green card. I was like, no. Is that like an American like travel visa thing? Like she told me what it was. And I was like, okay, no. I just came out to California to be with you and to hang out with you for as long as I can.
Oh, I'm laughing because
she was like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
So once she clued in on the second day, all of her, I don't want to say inhibitions because that's not the correct word. Her apprehensions, her concerns were sort of like gone, and she realized, holy shit, this guy drove 10,000 kilometers just to see me.
Right.
Like all he wants to do is see me for 4 days. Like,
That's a
and,
big,
and
pretty,
he's not
pretty good
trust.
Yeah.
He's not trying to like. He doesn't like. He's not trying to stay in my van. He's not trying to screw with my life. He just wants to go swimming and to sing songs with me. Like what? So once that happened, she was like, "Okay, I'm." She realized basically she was wrong. I think,
Well, you guys are
but not really wrong. Like it's just hard to believe.
Neil,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, there's more to it. It's like there's something out there that's called the demiurge, and this public, like, false personality that if you're bonded with somebody and they're of an equal maturity, right, and you have mutual trust, and you can get over that natural suspicion and doubt, then you've secured what you would call, I guess, a good householder sort of thing. You've got your family, right? So
I do, yes.
You've got an arrangement where, now I think you should treat everyone as if they were a close relative, but you've got something where you can't be messed with, you can't be gaslit, right? Because you can't gaslight two people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? No, I don't want to go into my stuff or complain or talk about my personal problems, but I've been observed some really interesting stuff about how that a family, like a bonded pair, you two could eventually become a gang that stalked other people if you weren't honorable, men and women of honor. Yeah, you could see it. It's like where like lying for an expedient is excusable amongst family members, and you got to wonder how.
Okay. Yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't. But the thing is that I really just don't have any. Like, we ended up having a situation where, and this is what happened the first time. I mean, she said to me the most magic words that no woman has ever said to me, and I will never forget them. She said to me, "Do you want to go up to your room and watch Battlestar Galactica?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So
Awesome, dude.
I because all I was talking about was how much I love that show, and we were having a great time. And
I'm telling you, man, it's like the one you want to marry. That's
so of course I was a perfect gentleman. I didn't know how this scholarship thing was going to go and everything like that. But I realized
you scholar too.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize.
In 2015, yeah, that's where me and her were both scholars, and then I was a scholarship coordinator for 2016. Although I didn't do much coordinating, I ended up doing a lot of work for Gene in the breakout room and running around helping Doug get all the stuff for the podiums worked out and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But still, and of course the geology tour. But once me and her were on the geology tour and we had all the time in the world to basically be teenagers and everything, I enjoyed all the time that we had together. And I realized quite clearly by the end of that tour that, no, I'm not going to let you get away. I am going to ask you to marry me. So I brought a ring with me.
Good for you.
And in preparation, I didn't even I haven't asked her to even go out. We weren't there was no date thing that was happening. We were just, the moment she arrived at the conference till the moment she left, I was with her. And she knew it, I knew it, we were happy. So there was no doubt there. But then I got, when we were in the Sacred Valley, I asked her to marry me among the petroglyphs because,
oh my God,
right on top of the image of Saturn, which was the greatest one, and so I had all that arranged, and I had the photographers in the background, and I had to get ahead of everyone in the morning there, but it was perfectly lit and it worked out great. And I had to ask her 3 times because she couldn't believe that I was asking her. And I said, "Look, I'm not going to ask." I said, after the second time, I said, "Look, I'm not asking a 3rd time." And she said, "Okay, yes."
So, like when you told me the Battlestar Galactica thing, it's just, I feel this almost that we had at the conference, like this almost transcendent elation in my body. It's like
body giddy when you're telling me about this. It's just so happy. I'm so glad I talked to you.
Well, yes, I'm filled with that all the time, especially with her. And one of the advantages, of course, is, well, we ended up. I like poetry and Shakespeare and stuff, and she really enjoys the words. She knows a lot, and she knows more than I do about mythology and the pantheons of gods, which, of course, as you can see, and of course, spirituality. These are aspects which I do not have in great abundance. And I think of her as an equal. So that alone is what I needed to hear. Like when she says things, well, number one, she responds well to when I quote Shakespeare to her, and she's like, oh, like, like I say stuff like, I said, thy fair virtues force, perforce doth move me. And she's like, I love that. But this is what it's all about. Like, I mean, I think we meld well together. So obviously I'm very excited and
integrating into the world. I think this is an example of personal growth, that starts to reap its benefits because you've plateaued.
Well, the same thing happened here when I'm like, we talk a lot, me and her, on Facebook and the phone and stuff. And it's quite clear that she still adores me as much as I adore her. And she wants to get out here. But I also realize that I cannot force her to change. She's been independent for over 10 years. She's never had to deal with another person in her life to tell her anything about what she's done. I'm the first boyfriend she's had since she was 25. She doesn't need me to tell her anything. So obviously I'm not going to try. I want her, like, I want her just the way she is. And so, but she already said, first time we met, she said, I can't keep doing this. I have to slow down. I have to stop being so travel-y and stuff. So this conference season where she was going to a bunch of conferences, I let her, I mean, we talked as much as we could, but I knew she was jumping from conference to conference, from thing to thing. And she was doing all these things that are important to her. So
yeah, I remember she came a little late.
Yeah, you can't take that away from her. That's her life. So when she gets here, we'll make plans for the next time we can meet, and hopefully things will get more stable as time goes on. I think
it's nice
over the summer,
you're abstracting your eye all over the place in time. Just be patient and just trust. And you've got real objective faith and hope and love going on there. So,
well, and of course with the Thunderbolts, the possibility of broadcasting while on the road could be very interesting as well this summer.
Well, don't expect if you've got the real answers and real objective information and gnosis for anybody to be interested, you'll never be popular. But have you seen me posting that Gurdjieff's advice for his daughter, his 82 pieces of advice?
No, did you post it on Facebook?
Yeah, I'll repost it again. But one of them in there that he says for his daughter, not to his daughter, for his daughter. And the language is very, very exact. This is something Schopenhauer talked about, that we don't appreciate the exactitude of words. In any case, it's one of the advices is realize that you cannot be everything to your spouse, and that there are things that you cannot give him or her, but that others can. Very simple piece of advice that how many marriages would have been saved, in the 70s and 80s if people were raised with these common sense. They're things like, don't become attached to anything that can destroy you in the course of time, which is a very enigmatic one. But it's like, don't define yourself by what you possess.
Oh, that's true. The stuff you own ends up owning you.
Well, and stop defining yourself. It's like they fall out in an iteration of the Enneagram, of like this 9-point octave. Yeah, but you know, I'd rather you see it for yourself. And
I like that first one that you mentioned when you said you can't be anything to your spouse. See, this is where I realized, like my parents are still together, and they just celebrate their 50th. So they're quite clearly, obviously for each other. But my dad grew up mostly atheist. My mom is Anglican. All three of us have different political points of view. So does my sister. Not that but we don't argue about them. We'll have great debates. Mom thinks we're fighting sometimes because her hearing aid goes out, but we're not.
No, that's awesome.
And we have
having a nice, passionate discussion.
Yeah, but the thing is that the situation with that allowed me to realize that mom still went out and did things, and dad still went out and did things, and there was no shame in that. I mean, it was perfectly normal for dad to not take mom out ice fishing, but occasionally they did go snowmobiling together and stuff like that. So there's no weirdness there. So I see the same thing here when I have such a good possibility of a fantastic relationship.
I wouldn't worry about it. You guys are
You're gonna. Well, the thing is that people go, "You're engaged. How many days have you spent with her?"
Right.
Well, 12. How many in my life? Okay. Well, how long have you actually known her? Well, now about a year and a half.
Right. Get a prenup. Get a prenup. People are
so I'm not really worried about that. I don't own anything, and I would never sue her. So.
Well, that'll change once you guys are together. You'll be able to like direct your energies and.
Let's put it this way. If I didn't trust her implicitly, I wouldn't already be chasing after her.
No, I got you, man.
There's just something with regards to the way that her and I just want to be honest with each other and be ourselves. I think that is. I just want to see the world with her, and see what she sees. It's like I don't want anything more. Like that's very simple to me. Someone I can talk to and explore the world with.
No, it's beautiful, man. It's like it has a
simple elegance.
Right. It has a simple abundance to it. It's like the possibilities become manifold for you two because you can rely on each other. And again, this world is like full of
I might require her to help rely on her anyway. I'll tell her I've saved her telephone 3 times, I think. And it just short time I was with her. So, and she loses her phone quite often. Every couple, like at least once a year.
Okay, what are your birthdays? Tell me your son's.
Oh, she's a Libra and I'm a Libra Scorpio. Oh, it is so clear. Like she's October 5th and I'm October 22nd.
Oh, that's sweet, man.
So I consider myself to be a very rational and balanced, crazy person. So that's because that's my Scorpio in there. The cusp of drama and criticism.
Don't celebrate your weaknesses. So I didn't think you were there, but you just made me think of one of them.
Oh no, I don't celebrate my weaknesses. I definitely can try to take the strength of both ones. There's so much passion in the Scorpio and so much reason for analytical or hermetic learning that comes with being a Libra, and the nature of egalitarianism. We both directly connect on that level. But I think that she needs to I need to realize I can do more, and she has to realize she can't save everyone.
Wow.
But this is the thing. I understand that there's an opposite here in the sense that, I know that in her mind, I think, and this is just an interpretation, of course, but I think that I'm consider myself, she considers me and our thing to be selfish sometimes. I had to break her of that, so to speak. I had to tell her straight up that
oh,
you don't have to you don't have to think that you're not being fair. You don't have to think that you're not being honest or not honest, but equitable. And she can take a break from herself. Like she doesn't think that sometimes.
Well, she's not accustomed to the
No, thinking like that. Exactly.
Right.
She's not a couple, so I can't expect her to think like that. And but I know that she has the intention, and her intentions are pure. So that's
yeah.
And I know that she has a whole life of things like, I mean, I was really with her for 4 days when I was there, and there was so many things that she had planned, like in the upcoming, and I was like, and she said, I'm going to try to get down before the end of September. And I said to myself, and I even said to her, I don't think you will, but that's quite all right. Like I mean, I'm not expecting that because she's going to try, but of course now here it is December. And I'm still not ragging on her or anything like that. I don't want any pressure to feel like she wants to come here to see her family, and she wants to come see me. And I was like, you make that happen. We'll, if you need anything, we'll make that happen. But also she has to, it's a big step for her because she will be relying on me if she comes here. Because you can't just, like, if you don't have enough money, you can't just sleep outside like you can in California. You'll die. So you need to be inside, and you need to be with people who are going to take care of you. So what if, there's a lot of what ifs there, and I don't want her in any way to feel pressured. So I'm going to let her take her time, and I know that she wants to, and I know that she loves the fact that I talk to my parents. I mean, just that alone is
that's
a good sign for her, because you can tell that there's there's obviously some family tension in her past. Not a big. I don't know the level of it. I'm not dwelling on that. But there's also, of course, the
anywhere where the broken relationships are. It's very absurd.
Something made her want to go and see the world. I mean, she got injured there a while ago, and then after that, she just wanted to go see the world and do good things for people. So
she may have an amnesic neuroses installed. I had one from high school. I didn't even know it was there until very recently.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. It was just a very simple thing where it's like afraid of situation of public shame, where the coach had taken my journal away where I was journaling.
But I don't want to talk I mean, I don't want to say anything about her. You talk about this though, because I don't want to. Because actually, this is not. I don't want to talk about anything bad about her, because obviously there's nothing wrong about that. But I mean, just my feelings I'm talking about. So
this happens to everyone, except clearly, you don't seem to have any particular trauma that you're not that you haven't coped with or processed. But I was like,
maybe
I didn't know why I was one of 4 siblings who dropped out of high school. Of 5. I had no idea why. And it turns out that there was stuff that I had totally blocked about huge portions of my life. I just ran away from El Paso when I was like 17. And looking back, it's like, and it's nothing like, abuse or anything. It was just neurotic, shame, like stuff that gets passed along unconsciously. People.
Yes, I had actually some of that I had to deal with, quite a bit of it actually. And I had reconciliation from someone, an old girlfriend whom I was unfaithful to when I was like 17 years old or 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
And that lingered so long until finally we met up again. We talked. She couldn't even remember it. And she was just happy that I was hanging around again and just, being a nice guy. And she was happy for that kind of stuff. And I was like, so here I am thinking that I ruined someone and I was an asshole, and I was carrying that around for so long.
Yeah.
And it caused me pain. And now that I'm older and I realized that was there, it was easier. The recognition, as they say in Buddhism, just awareness of the problem is the first step in fixing it.
Well, I'm not going to rely on myself telling you about this. I'll tell you what Maurice Nicole says in his exhaustive psychological commentaries on the work of Gurdjieff and Ostensky. He says that people communicate in 4 ways. It's foolish sincerity, foolish insincerity, clever sincerity and clever insincerity. And I won't talk about the two latter, but he says he says there that we should avoid foolish sincerity at all costs. People call it telling the truth, but in fact, it's better to have foolish insincerity because foolish sincerity is the most mechanical, stupid way that we can communicate. And that if we understood just how mechanical and stupid it is, we call it telling the truth, right? But in fact, you can do infinite harm and poison somebody's soul. And this happens to children everywhere. I mean, in our culture, just universally almost. So that'll just, whet your appetite a little. And again, that
I think he's right. It's the unconscious lessons that I was talking about before that allow you to guide things. And as you said, foolish insincerity would be poking fun at. Canadians do that all the time. We poke fun at ourselves. We poke fun at our prime minister. Nothing sacrosanct. We'll poke fun at the Queen. If you take yourself too seriously in Canada, people make fun of you. Like if you try to be like Ronald Reagan or act like a king, unless you were actually a king, don't act like a king. Like no one's going to respond well to that. I'm a rich banker asshole will just get people passively aggressively calling you names all day or give you the look, that type of thing. But
I see where you're going.
But what I meant was that I think is safer, where you give the like you can have humor. Like there's a Montreal Film Festival which is called Just for Laughs, and it's just literally a comedy festival that lasts like an entire 2 weeks, because obviously laughter being the best medicine. But and you're right, the other two are clever sincerity and clever insincerity. Clever insincerity would be those cool jokes that George Carlin stuff says, or clever sincerity actually would probably be no.
Yeah, that'd be clever.
Clever sincerity is basically scientific progress or engineering stuff, where you're actually.
I think this is this. Now I'm not going to say.
I could be wrong, of course, on that last one.
Oh, right. I think I'd point you back to where he originally got it, which would I think from Ouspensky. But those are the 4 ways, period, that people communicate. So everything falls into one of those 4 categories as far as our communications to each other. So you've got your instinctive center is wired with things like your sexual impulse, right? So if you're using foolish sincerity, you can traumatize a person. In other words, you're like wiring neurons that are like instinctive. Does that make sense? Like
yes,
especially when you're like going through puberty or something.
Traumatizing people, yeah. I know. We've all. I mean, I think that practically all of our 20s are spent trying to try to undo all the damage between the ages of 13 and 18.
Yeah,
like
Cocker Spaniels all our lives.
Well, we think that we know everything, and we're given uncontrollable hormones, and it takes us forever. Like I'm just now going, I can cope with pretty much anything. I've gone through divorce. I've gone through, some long relationships. I've found what I want to do with my life. Now I'm 40 some odd years old. I'm ready to get started on my life. Like that's kind of where I'm at. So it's.
It doesn't strike me that you're the type. I mean, look, you're clearly concerned with the quality of your soul, so to speak. In other words, you probably had to do a lot of self-assessment, especially going through like a divorce and all that, where you don't have that thing that you had, right? That ability not to be gaslighted. suddenly you're out on your own and you're like, what the hell happened? Or, you know, how much of this is mine? Do you know what I mean?
I'm thinking about what I think I remember it most when I think about Fight Club, when he said, after fighting, everything else in your life has the volume turned down. Well, after a divorce, everything else in your life has the volume turned down.
That's a
I
nonsense.
mean, you can hit, someone comes at you from, like, it's like, look, you have a big, like, they're repossessing your car. Well, dude, I had a divorce. I can handle a repossessed car. And I went and got my car back after after things worked out.
So
But
you were okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
you can handle it. Whereas before, I'd be freaking out.
So you're run over by it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, but now, now it's like, no, I'm just going to talk to them on the phone. I'm just going to tell them what's what. I'm just going to deal with it and move on. As simple as that. And
Sharing resentments, you're not keeping accounts. That is so good.
well, and this is where, that's why I'm not. There's no blame here for, anything that Cameron does. She's blameless. I know that she's gonna get here soon. I'm happy that she wants to be here. I know that she wants to be here. So I expect that, before February, she could be here, because I really would like to hopefully plan this wonderful summer that would be really nice. We could actually travel across Canada and then across the United States, and then see where we want to go. Well, we have to go through there. I mean, we have like 3 or 4 people in Albuquerque alone that we have to go see, including yourself.
Definitely should crash over here at least one night. We got a big futon to fit on.
I think that we can do it, because if it's summertime, then we can take the car, because on off nights we can sleep either outside in a tent or in the car. So,
oh, they make these camping hammocks that are like you can sleep like in between a couple of trees. Ben showed me that. So I got one. They're cheap. They're like $20 on Amazon or something. And they're awesome. They're just like hammocks that you could put up bam, like a sleeping bag, but a hammock.
I think I'd like that. I'd like to sleep beside my car or above it.
Oh,
there you go.
Well, yeah. I hope he comes down. He's talking to me and Brian Gunthorpe about coming down here and doing a reboot of some startup company stuff we were doing back in 1999 and 2000. And I need somebody who is my right hand man, who's a trustworthy soul, is another man of honor, because I've wound myself up in a den of thieves, so to speak. Not to put anybody down, because from a certain point of view, of course, there's nothing but compassion on anybody who gets that blame lost.
Well, I've heard my fair share of interesting stories about many people, but you usually learn more about the storyteller than you learn about the subject.
Right. And I'm not actually resisting. I just don't want, it's like, well, I don't talk to many people, so I'm giving, if I'm giving you a lot of information, I apologize.
No, that's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I do have to get going soon, though, I think. But
sure. No, we've been talking for a good hour and a half. One of those advices is, I'll paste it in your little text window there. One of them is, if somebody asks your opinion about someone or something, speak only of his or her qualities. And do not complain is one of them. And that's a good one. Do not complain. It's pretty straightforward. What else is applicable here? There's a lot of good stuff in there. In fact, when I got back, I was like, I had my little bubble burst. Okay. My little bubble of believing that everybody around me had my best interest at heart in the kind of mutual way that I did for them.
Okay.
And
now that is something I can understand.
Yeah. And that's really painful. It's really painful because it's like, it's all that could have been, or all that could be, is ruined, and you know you're not the one. And it's not, and it's a sad thing. It's makes you sad for other people. It doesn't make you angry at them. I, or,
I don't, well, I don't know exactly what happened, but I can ascertain because I've seen, like, I've seen people actually, especially in groups like this, where they were, some people need to be heard, but quite clearly there are things that are, let's just say, on firmer footing than others. But that doesn't mean that there's not possibility for exploration of these alternate theories now. The trouble is that you have to sometimes sift through the crap. And it's just like anyone who wants to study world politics will eventually stumble across the idea of the lizard people or something. And you have to be able to go, who the hell started that? When did it start? Why? And if you can do that, you can begin to piece together where this kind of stuff entered in the lexicon and why it became popular. But if we don't have the ability to even sift through that,
right.
You're going to get real lost real quick. And you're going to have some people like who, like, for example, the idea that cymatic vibrations could have an effect on landscape does not surprise me in the least. However, to say that all frequency and vibration are everything about the universe in all ways, well, clearly not. There has to be, but to say that the amplitude and frequency of vibrations in materials changes with electrical property, okay, that can be interesting. Same as it does with heat. Changes that particular thing, causes melt to come down, or to things to melt and so forth. So there's so many different possibilities now, and so many different ways of looking at how things will react or the way things were, even. Because if we don't understand where we were, we can never figure out where we're going.
I think there's something to be about the mob mentality, about the group mentality. There's like,
I try to avoid that stuff. It's bad for you.
how's that?
The mob mentality?
Yeah, it's terrifying. Mobs are stupid entities that are very dangerous.
Well, and that's why I think one of the reasons why I ended up being able to work well with many of the group people in the Thunderbolts community was because I argued with them and told them things I disagreed with, and things that proved my point that falsified theirs, but vice versa. I had the same thing happen. And then I had to go, okay, well, if this is true, then these two things cannot be true, can they? What conditions would occur for those two events to be true? And then we sat there and thought, like, it raises third possibilities. It raises a whole lot of other things where you actually explore the evidence.
Oh, I know.
As opposed to the theory.
That's crazy, but you're right. And oh my, what was it? You just made me think of something. What was it? It was the mob, the group thing, right?
Yes.
People actually can go into like these states where they say one thing 1 minute and then literally the next minute do the opposite. And then you'll say, wait, you just did the opposite of what you said. And they'll say to you, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. And they're just, come on.
It's called hypocritical. Yes, I've seen that happen, especially in social groups. And I've caught myself
really
doing similar, but no. It's a way of protecting yourself against embarrassment mostly. But I find that
it's ironic. It's a shameful thing.
Well, sometimes you agree with somebody simply to get out of a conversation. I've had that happen too, where someone, like one time I made an accident. I was in California and I accidentally brought up race to someone from the South. And didn't I hear some stuff that, although not inherently racist, was ignorant to the point where I was uncomfortable.
No, right?
And so I just wanted to get out of that conversation. And so I was nodding with the whole, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, that's actually very interesting. I like what you're saying right there. I'm just going to take this pizza though and go over there and talk to those people right now, because I think one of them lost their leg, and I'm going to see if I can find their leg for them. Okay, bye.
So foolish insincerity, right? It wasn't, you didn't have any particular plan or any clever manipulation on them, but you were insincere.
Yes.
And
I
that's
had
way
to
better
fail.
than been, right. If you'd started a fight with them by telling them the truth and blurting something out, and blah, blah, blah.
No, you can only do that with people who are receptive to your way of thinking, and sometimes they have to at least be able to realize when they're wrong, or even the fact that there is the possibility of wrongness. Like,
I fell under the delusion, bro, that I could transform contrarians and beat my head against a brick wall. When now I'll know when I recognize a contrarian, when they go ahead and nothing you could say is like, even as everything comes back as contradiction.
Well, you have to sort of stop. I realized after a while that I had to remove people from my Facebook followings that are causing me emotional grief that makes me want to respond. And so I started getting rid of all those. I don't have to unfriend them, although I did unfriend one guy who was particularly vile, but only one. Everyone else, well, I guess I had one guy who unfollowed me.
Not doing that. Consider not doing that. I dislike it when people try to push my buttons too, but those buttons are actually something you should probably pay a lot of close attention to, because they're where your emotions get ahead of your whole unified self, right? Like, who should be able to make you feel anything?
Well, I had to shut the follows off so that I could think what was triggering me and what's causing me this type of thing.
No, I know that. Yeah.
So once that happened, I realized what was causing it, and the fact that I can still have a rational debate with these people. It's just that obviously, I have a disdain for racism and bigotry and stuff like that. So watching the United States do what it's doing is very difficult right now. But at the same time, I have hope that that this is not an infection which spreads or something, some sort of thing, but it actually is a wake-up call to all the people who, clearly are going to suffer if something like this sort of spread out of control. So I have hope for the future, I guess is what I'm saying.
Where your clever sincerity is going to help. Sometimes people need to hear something one time, they never had that idea, and it's like, wow. It's kind of like when I heard Wall and Dave, or I heard John Taylor Gatto for the first time. I was like confronted with new ideas, and it was like a light broke through the fog. Instantly, I saw it. It's like, whoa. And then you listen to them a little more closely, and you see these people are being consistent, right? And they're not giving you a lot of opinion.
No, I don't mind exploring the opinions of the meta occasionally, and I don't mind exploring the opinions of certain things which we have no ability to actually study yet. And I don't mind getting into the philosophical differences and the aspects of spirituality that could bring out, and the idea of what is death now suddenly and all that kind of stuff. Sure. But when it comes right down to it, everything that I see on a planetary surface and everything I see in a history book should be able to be defined clearly and succinctly in the theory, which is electromagnetism. I mean, there's very little things, almost everything. I mean, to such a point, like, for example, I started going over old feng shui books, geomancy and stuff like that. And some of the words that they were using were amazing. Like, they were using nodes, and they were talking about how the electricity or energy could flow into a mountain if it looked like this type of rock. If it looked like this type of rock, it was impenetrable to this force.
Awesome.
If it goes down to this particular place, this is where, like, for example, where rivers meet, that's where dragons will appear. And I was stunned by what this. Why did you build your house with a mountain to the east? What were you trying to protect yourself from?
I got to add that to my survey.
You're getting the idea. It's very interesting.
Well, okay, now let me rewind you for a sec. The psychology of man's possible evolution. What if I told you that according to Ouspensky, nature takes man, the animal, to a certain point where he can be happy and fulfilled and not evolve? That we won't evolve as a group, or maybe not for a good long while, because right now, to transcend, right, what we're born as, we have to, one, have the innate psychology, and two, get outside help at a certain stage after, because if we were forcing Joe Sixpack to evolve, that would be cruel. That would be objectively cruel. He's perfectly fine where nature left him. And
okay.
And this is where we all start out. This is kind of like I guess maybe some are born like super savants or whatever, and God knows where I was before I got here. I have no recollection. I know I arose into consciousness, approximately age 3 or something. And I'm not even saying that I'm awake. They say that just the idea that you're putting yourself in a pride position over others will make you more asleep, will make your behavior, because even our thoughts are mechanical. This whole fourth wave thing, have you heard of this?
The fourth wave, yeah.
The fourth way, yeah. Like you've got the way of the fakir, the way of the monk, and the way of the saint. And these are different ways that are traditions that you can become more enlightened. But there's a fourth way which we can do in our regular day-to-day lives, and that's what Gurdjieff brought back, and Ouspensky was his protege for a while till they split. And well, anyway, I've been looking into this thing a lot, and yeah, there's there's a breakaway conscious circle of humanity. And if anybody's close to it, it's you guys. And I can feel it when I come around to be near you or when I speak to you.
I see a potential of, like, for example, when I explained to someone why it's so important, and I said, well, it's because of how the questions change. And it's like, well, give me an example. And I said, well, here's a perfect example. Instead of wondering whether or not there's a God, I can tell you that there is a God, that I don't believe that he's a divine, and I know him quite well. And I've seen him with my own eyes. Now, that is something that they were like, what? How do you could also ask questions like, for example, and of course I was talking about Saturn, but, and I have seen the rings of Saturn through a telescope, so it's very beautiful.
I was the guy with a beard.
Yeah, Captain God with a big beard, yes. But it's true, he did have a big beard at the time. But what I meant is another thing that comes to mind is not just that particular aspect, but instead of having a question like, for example, what happens after you die? The question now becomes, what information do you carry with you when you die? Do you have an effect on the actual entire Earth when you resonate? Does something happen there? Does your field mingle with that field? Does your energy therefore become part of the entire energy of the entire universe, and so on and so forth? Well, now this is something that you can begin to actually ascertain, measure, and construct. This is not just simple crap anymore. You actually have a mechanism, a method of transfer, a way of dealing with it, the way of communicating between beings. Basically, this is just field theory, and basically you can study this using radio waves. I mean, it can't be that much different. So there's, or as who said, scalar waves, longitudinal waves, as someone else said. So you have a whole interesting way of looking at this thing suddenly. So questions are all different. And so, of course, spirituality becomes something that you can actually examine. I mean, I don't know. I know for a fact that there are electromagnetic phenomenon which people interpreted as angels, ghosts, and other events. However, to actually say that actual ghosts are actually the spirits of people, well, that would be a big stretch for me to even believe. It doesn't mean that, however, you can study and test for it suddenly. Now suddenly it becomes something that with enough knowledge and expertise, you can begin to go, okay, well, this is how DNA vibrates. This is how it communicates with other DNA. This is how it communicates with your dog. This is how, like,
right,
that type of thing. You can actually then know, okay, well, now that you have that, can I have the numbers on how strong is this frequency? Okay, well, it's this fast and it goes across this. Okay, well, let's do the math. How many people can I communicate with at this current energy level of the Earth? And this is where it goes all the way back to where Ted Holden was saying, where he said about telepathy. Because now there's no reason to suspect that telepathy didn't exist, because if we had a bigger field around our head, could that be the case? But this begs the question, why do we have a voice box at all then? I'm just wondering.
What I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you wrap up because you're probably tired. But
I'm done. I'm good. I'm tired. Yes.
Well, our cosmology, when we have objective scientific paradigm, and theory, everything should fit into it. And in other words, every cosmology should fit in our cosmology.
We should understand why it was wrong, at least. Yes.
Well, yes. I agree.
Because, like I said, you don't get anywhere without examining your assumptions.
Not wrong. It's like unless you can eject your experiencing self out of because you're not your thoughts, and you aren't your emotions, and you aren't your body. You're something else that is liminally connected to those.
As I told a friend of mine once, he's like, what's the secret? He goes, well, if you're so smart, what's the secret to life? And I said, well, the secret of life is not realizing that you are a leaf on the river of time flowing through an ever-changing creation.
I would say don't recognize that.
That you are not that. You are actually part of the water itself and constantly changing along with it.
Right. So we can't, it's a motion and a rest. It's like it's a reciprocal thing, which is why you need a person that's trustworthy and honorable with you in a bonded way. That's, it's like a marriage, like bonded by a love and faith in each other. And
I think Rick Astley said it best when he said, never going to give you up, never going to let you down. Never going to let down or hurt you.
You're awesome.
Anyway,
yes.
I think that's good for us right now. That was an excellent show. I hope
I want to get you on with some other people.
Sure.
For example, you were speaking about Egyptologists. Well, Ted's co-author, Troy McLaughlin, and I did a talk just a couple weeks ago. Even more, well,
do I know Troy McLaughlin?
Well, no, we want him to come to the conference, so we want to get, he just did that Ganymede Illustrated.
I have to watch that. Yes, I had that on my list.
I haven't seen the electrical.
No, but apparently I haven't watched that new thing with Donald Scott either. So I have to go catch up. Apparently.
Well, yeah. Would you go back and watch Don's on force-free currents? There's a paper too on his.
Oh, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I already heard about it. I know I have now.
Yeah, electric
Force-free
sky.
currents.
Yeah, I
Boom.
know. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with all of it, but it's all very compelling, and for our heart brains.
Our heart brains. I like that. All right. Well, I'm loading the paper right now.
friend.
I'm going to go though, because I need to take off. But tomorrow I'll be on. So let's make something happen. Maybe tomorrow night. I don't know.
Hey,
Or tonight, I guess.
It's all good. I'm at your disposal. Okay, Neil. If you need anything, just let me know. Do you have my phone number?
Actually, no, I don't. But you're always on TeamSpeak or sorry, on Facebook. But you know what else? Let's. I'm going to set up something anyway. A guy's coming over tomorrow night. As soon as he's done, we should like put something out across the Facebook that we're going to do something and see if we can invite some people to have like a little thing going on.
Yeah, the trick is doing that at a regular interval. They'll start showing up more and more.
Oh yeah, but I can make that happen. I'm going to be doing this all the time now. I'm getting the hang of it.
How
So.
you like, man? I'll form it around you.
Well, I have my own thing as well, so we can make it happen at the same time, which would be even cooler. So anyway, we'll talk tomorrow. I'll see you later.
Hey, have a good morning. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Take care, you too. Bye-bye. That was awesome. That was freaking awesome. Okay. Unbelievably good.